Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of Reddit Podcast Stories, where today, my wife refuses to call me her husband and will only call me her partner instead. I, 32 male, and my wife, 31 female, have been married for 5 years and we have a 2-year-old son. However, there's something that really bothers me about her. She always introduces me as her partner and not as her husband. She says the husband-wife is a role that anyone can have, but she believes that I'm her life partner more than anything else. She says she loves me more than a husband, which is sweet, but people assume that we're not even married. I understand that she has good intentions, but I don't agree with this logic. For me, husband and wife is a term that signifies commitment, loyalty, and unity. I think calling me a partner is too vague and generic, and it doesn't reflect the depth of our relationship. As I mentioned, this could cause misunderstandings with other people who think that we're not married, and one even assumed we're in an open relationship. I've talked to her about this several times, but she doesn't change her mind. She says I'm being insecure and that I should respect her choice of words. She insists it doesn't affect our love at all and that I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. I don't want to argue with her over this, but I feel that she's being stubborn. Am I the jerk? Edit. I talked to my wife about an idea that one of the users suggested to her about the use of husband and partner. She found it a good middle ground for both of us and agreed to use it, on the condition that I also use wife and partner. I accepted. Thanks to everyone for the responses. You got it good. My friend's wife calls him her roommate. My mom does something similar with my dad. Some guy who walked into my apartment and still won't leave. Married for 35 years. No jerks here. I think you're both aiming for the same thing out of love. Maybe you can ask her to say, my husband and partner. But ultimately, what others think of your relationship is irrelevant to what you actually have. Their opinions should not matter. No jerks here, but consider this. Some women and people prefer the term partner because it applies equal footing in your relationship, while there have been historical discrepancies between the terms husband and wife. Bro, you literally got married in 2023 and expect her to respect you as a man. You're delusional, my guy, and you signed up for this the moment you put a ring on her. Too bad you guys already have a kid together, but good luck with the eventual divorce, alimony, and the child support you'll be paying her. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. How dare you expect to be called her husband? It's almost like you think you two are married or something. Am I the jerk for refusing to drive my husband to the airport and being upset that he's leaving? Background. We live on the East Coast, and his family lives in Texas. My family lives about 4 hours away. They drive to us every holiday, birthday, dance recital, etc. We've lived here for roughly 7 years. Before that, we lived in Texas. His family takes several trips and vacations a year, and only once this past year came to visit us. Over the 7 years, we have went to see them at minimum 1 to 3 times per year. My husband works out of town about 3 weeks a month, so it's a lot of solo parenting for me. The weekend before Christmas, he went with his parents and siblings to Oklahoma to visit his grandparents. Myself and my kids were unable to go as my daughter had holiday things going on at home that she didn't want to miss. He came home the Monday before Christmas and asked if we could swing a trip to Texas after Christmas to see his family and so his dad and him could go to the Alamo Bowl. I told him we unfortunately couldn't. We really couldn't swing an unplanned trip financially right now, and with wanting to travel so close to the holidays, booking prices were extremely high. I also explained to him that our daughter had off of school and all sports this week, and that never happens, especially when he's home too, and I really wanted this to be a week for us all to spend together, especially since he will start traveling for work again on the 2nd of January and he will not be home until the last week of January. The day before Christmas Eve, I was out shopping and he texted me saying he knew I was going to be mad, but his dad had booked him a flight and bought tickets for himself, my husband, my brother-in-law, and my mother-in-law to all go to the game. He would return on the 30th. I got upset because we had already talked about going, and I said we just couldn't swing it this year. His response was that he knew nothing about this, and his dad surprised him with it for a last-minute Christmas gift, which is a lie, because they mailed our gifts to us and our kids, and he had received a Christmas gift. I asked him if everything had already been purchased, as I would like him to not go. He said yes, and that he was going because it's something he really wanted to do. We haven't spoken much since then, honestly, because I feel very hurt that he doesn't want to spend time with myself or our kids before a long work trip, after he's just seen his family last week and would rather spend most of the week with his parents. He says that we could just book flights for myself and our kids to go, but we honestly don't have the money, and I'm not maxing out a credit card for an unplanned trip. Tonight, he asked me if I will be driving him to the airport tomorrow morning for a 6 a.m. flight. I told him that he will need to book an Uber because I'm not waking our kids up at 3:30 a.m. to drive an hour each way to the airport so that he can go on a trip that I don't even want him going on. He says I'm being unreasonable. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. This honestly sounds like a secret second family type situation with how often he's gone. Even if it's not something that extreme though, this man is a husband by contract only. You and your kids deserve so much better. He has real nerve calling you unreasonable. Not the jerk. You might as well file for divorce as you're already separated. Not the jerk. If I were you, I'd change the locks while he's gone, as he obviously doesn't want to be married. Well, what do you think? Does OP's husband have a second family and should she divorce him? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for thinking it's unfair my husband plans to give money to his daughter, who shared his parents' inheritance already? Not in the US. My husband Nate and I, both 50, have been married for 24 years, and we have twin sons who are 22. He got into a really bad car accident a couple of months ago, and though it was not seriously injured, he was shaken up. He now often talks about how his life is fleeting, and we should make sure to be prepared. Nate has 2 siblings, an older brother and a sister, Tina, who's 33. Tina is actually Nate's biological daughter. He had her in high school, and his parents adopted her from birth. Her mom was never in the picture. The family all knows about this, including Tina herself. Tina and my family were cordial, but not close. Nate's parents passed within a year of each other almost a decade ago. They split all they had 3 ways for their 3 kids. 5 years ago, Nate's older brother decided to join a monastery. He left behind all of his worldly possessions to Tina and my sons, though my sons mostly got things of sentimental value, while Tina got things of more monetary value. I think my in-laws were all within their right to handle their money as they saw fit. My problem is Nate. Yesterday, Nate told me he had a rough idea of how he would like his possessions taken care of. Basically, he would like to split all he has 3 ways, Tina and our 2 sons. We don't have a lot, but Nate has his parents' inheritance, and he would like to give that to all of his kids equally. I asked him how that was fair. Tina was adopted by his parents and already received her inheritance as their daughter. If his parents gave him and his brother half and half, I would understand why he felt the need to provide Tina with something. As it is, Tina already took from his share of the inheritance. Moreover, his brother also gave her money and valuables worth more than our sons received. Tina is also a dentist. She is in no way in need of financial help. Nate said at the end of the day, Tina is his biological daughter, and it is only right that he left her with something. I don't think we need to pile more money onto a capable woman with a good job who already has so much while our sons are still young and just starting their careers. Am I the jerk? No jerks here. Your husband had a brush with death and is thinking about what's important in life. You're thinking about what's important as well, and to you, that's your sons. However, you need to be realistic with your estate planning. Getting old is expensive, and with continued inflation of healthcare costs, it'll be even more expensive when you retire. You should meet with a financial planner before you and your husband talk any more about who's getting what. You're the jerk, not your money. You have no say in how he chooses to leave it to his kids. Wicked stepmom is never an attractive look, so work on that. I think my husband and my sister are too close for comfort. 8 months ago, my sister, who's 28, moved back into town. Backstory: she has not lived here for 10 years, as she originally left for college and never came back. We grew apart, we talked maybe once a year, and I haven't seen her physically in 4 years. I, 31, female, have been with my husband, 29, male, for 8 years, married for 3. She's met him twice in the entire duration of my relationship with him. He's a quiet and serious man who only opens up in front of me and a few of his select friends. She was struggling to get a job here, so I thought I'd be a good person and ask my husband if he could maybe help her find a job at his company, since they work in the same type of field. Fast forward to current times, they actually work in the same department now. He's been acting more closed off towards me lately, but he claims everything is fine when I ask him what's wrong. We had our traditional family Christmas meal yesterday, and at first he tried to get out of it. This is not something he's ever tried to do, and I was very confused by this. After some convincing, he finally agreed to come along. My sister pulled him aside a few times, and they were in a very deep conversation, as if the rest of us didn't exist. When I approached them every time, they would both jump a little, and when I'd ask what they were talking about, they would say, "A work project that's near deadline." I was feeling a little off about their behavior, but the one thing that got me the most was at one point, he got up to go get himself another drink. She was sitting in a chair that was next to the kitchen door, so he had to pass her to go to the kitchen. When he was near her, she put her hand up and reached towards him, and he caressed her palm and lightly grabbed her fingers as he walked past her. She looked up at him with a big smile. He looked down at her and nodded his head. As soon as he was out of sight, she turned her head towards me and smirked. When it was time for dinner, there was a main dining table that seats most of the guests. There was a second table that could seat an additional 4 people. She sat down at the side table away from everyone else. I got my plate and sat down at the main table, but saw that he sat at the side table with her. I told him there was a seat next to me, and he told me he wanted to sit where he was at. I decided to join them, and they went from actively talking to each other to just sitting in silence while we ate. I later asked him what that hand touching was about, and he said, "It's just a high five." I said it didn't look like a high five, and he said that's all it was. I've never had any reason to suspect him of cheating, but this has me feeling on edge. I've been battling with myself to investigate further. Another thing is that he doesn't focus that strongly when he and I talk. It's always just short answers and lighthearted. They were having some intense conversations where he was just hanging on her every word and giving her in-depth responses. Would this make you feel like something is going on? There were several instances where they were both on their phone texting at the same time as well and glancing at each other sometimes. That could be nothing, but after everything else, it made me feel uneasy. Get a lawyer. Don't let on that you're concerned until you have reviewed your position, protected assets, etc. Yes, make sure you have a conversation and communicate with a lawyer, not your spouse or sibling. Not only to explore divorce options, but a lawyer will help you find the right way to get proof. A lawyer can recommend a reputable private investigator or some other options that are covered legally. All I have to say is be analytical about it. Remove your emotion as best you can. Don't confront him about it. Get evidence, confirm your suspicion, and seek legal counsel. If you have shared accounts, prior to dropping the bomb, take your share. Get absolutely everything in order before letting him know that you know. I'm sorry you're in this position. You'll get through it. Just be smart. Good luck, OP. Am I the jerk for insisting that my stepdaughter drive my daughter to her friend's house because her dad bought her a car? I'm 42, male. My wife, who's 39, female, had a daughter, Sophie, with her ex. She's now 17. I have an 11-year-old daughter with my late wife. My wife and I have been together for 3 years. My wife is very kind to my daughter, and they are quite close. My daughter has very little memory of her mom and has told me how nice it is to feel like she has a mom now. My wife is also happy to play that role in my daughter's life. I'm not as close to Sophie because she's older and she spends 2 weeks a month at her dad's place. But she's polite to me, and I think she's wonderful. Sophie's dad is pretty well off. My wife and I less so. He was the main earner before my wife left him. My wife and I both work full-time, but we have to be careful with our finances right now. We got my daughter a few books and Sophie a dress for Christmas. Both of them liked their presents. Sophie's dad got Sophie a brand new car. We have only one car in the family right now. I drop my wife off on the way to work in the mornings, so it works out. But it does mean that I couldn't take my daughter or Sophie anywhere during the holidays, as my wife still has to work. I have the week off because I'm a teacher. She did have a few days off though. Now that Sophie has the car, she's planning to go to her friend's New Year's party. My daughter asked if Sophie could drop her off at her friend's house too, and Sophie said it's too far out of the way, extra half an hour approximately, and it's her car, so my daughter can wait until she's old enough to drive. I thought that was uncalled for. So I said Sophie was being rude and she should drop my daughter off. She said it's not her fault I can't afford another car for us. My wife said I should just let it go because my daughter has a dad all the time and Sophie only has one half the time, and the car is a fair compensation for that. My daughter and Sophie are both upset now. Am I the jerk? Edit. I suppose you're right. It is her car. She can do what she wants with it. I just thought it wouldn't hurt her to think of others this time. My daughter asked very politely, and Sophie often has much nicer things than my daughter, and I've never asked her to share or anything. And I pay for all of her gas while she lives with us. Edit again. 30 minutes extra means 15 minutes out of the way, 30 minutes total. An hour is a lot of extra driving, I agree. To the people who said, ask nicely, my daughter asked very nicely, and Sophie literally said, I don't have to do anything for you. That's why I said she was being rude. I'm not forcing her, I just said that I think she should. To the person who asked if I broke up their family, Sophie's dad cheated on my wife twice, so maybe think before you speak. I might be wrong here, but there's no reason to overreact. You're the jerk. The car doesn't come with conditions. You have just driven a big wedge into your blended family. You're the jerk. You're the jerk. Don't make your daughter your stepdaughter's problem. You're the jerk. If Sophie's reasoning is that it was too far away, it sounds like she wouldn't be comfortable with the extra 30 minutes on the road alone. It's not responsible to put a new driver in a position they're not comfortable with, especially on New Year's Eve when there's a greater risk of unsafe driving going on. She's also not obligated to use the gift her dad got her for your benefit. It was fine to ask her to drive, but you needed to accept her answer. Calling her rude wasn't appropriate. Bruh, I'm so done with y'all today. Y'all are just mean. I don't like you people. Am I the jerk for not letting my old mother-in-law stay with us over Christmas, even though she lives alone? I'm 41. My husband is 47. We have a 5-year-old daughter. My husband's mom is 72. She has some mobility issues, but overall she's fine health-wise. She lives alone. Her husband passed away quite suddenly last year. We live about 2 hours away from her by car, so my husband visits her sometimes on weekends, but not that often. I've never had a good relationship with her. She made some insensitive comments when I miscarried, and has always said that my job isn't a real job, and I should pull my weight in the family. I teach music lessons online. I don't earn as much as my husband, who works a regular corporate job, but I do make a good chunk of the family income, so it's not just a hobby. I'm also home with my daughter, which is a lot of work too. Anyways, when my father-in-law passed, my mother-in-law took it pretty hard. I suppose it sunk in that she wasn't as independent as she was in the past. She asked if she could move in with us, but I didn't want her to, because it would honestly just be miserable to have her around all day. My husband wasn't really happy, but he told her if she gets older and needs help, she can move in with us. For Thanksgiving this year, we went to my parents' house, and she was upset about it, so she called during dinner, and she was crying that she was alone. Later, I said that she did that just to mess up our evening, and my husband said I was being cold and heartless. She asked if she could stay with us for Christmas and New Year's, and I told my husband that she was absolutely not coming over. He got really angry, and we both said some thoughtless things. He thinks I'm just holding grudges and being cruel to leave an old lady alone during the holidays, and his mother on top of that. We were both just pretending everything was fine on Christmas so our daughter would enjoy it like usual. I don't know if I'm the problem. Edit. We did visit her on Christmas Eve and will visit again for New Year's. I just didn't want her to stay with us for the whole 2 weeks. Edit 2. It's not the first holiday season since her husband passed. Last year, she was with us for a few months after he passed, during the holidays as well. She insisted I cook every meal for her separately, since my daughter doesn't like spicy food. We have gotten used to eating more mildly spiced food, and she didn't like that. Once she left, we went to the beach for the weekend, and she called saying she was very sick. We headed home straight away, and it turns out she wasn't sick at all. I know I'm being selfish, but I just don't want to deal with it again. Edit 3. My husband is not an only child. His brother lives in Australia though, which is kind of an issue. We're in the US. He says he will help pay if she needs to go to a nursing home later though. Not the jerk. Your mother-in-law sounds horrible. I kind of grew up in a situation like this. My grandma was just like your mother-in-law. She has a track record of being rude and demanding of you. You have examples. She wants to be waited on for 2 weeks. Not the jerk. Your husband can quit being heartless and wake up. His mother has been deeply unkind to his wife for years, and a natural consequence of that is that she is not welcome for extended visits. Am I the jerk for refusing my son's Christmas gift? I, 40s male, live with my wife, 40s female, and our youngest kid who's 18 male. Times have been tight for us the last few months. Our bills are paid, but we have essentially no discretionary income, and that means that Christmas presents were pretty much off the table. This is the first Christmas where this has been the case, and my wife and I have been pretty sad. Our son is aware of this, and being an empathetic kid, was accepting of the situation. He's also lucky in that I have a few wealthy relatives that give him money for Christmas every year. So Christmas morning comes around, and our son comes in and gives us each a card. We smile and open them, and in each card is $100. It almost brought me to tears. He used his own Christmas money to give us a gift, even though we couldn't afford to give him anything. Here's where I'm torn. I got up, gave him a hug, thanked him, and then gave the money back. I told him that he will never have to give us money. My personal feeling is that gifts of money go down generations, or sideways, but never up. I absolutely do not want either of my kids giving me money, and I would never ask. It just seems wrong to me. He seemed a bit disappointed. I took the cards and put them up on the mantle over the fireplace and made a big deal over how much we liked them, but I refused the money. Told him to keep it and buy himself something nice with it. Am I the jerk for refusing the gift? Edit. Many have suggested that I let him treat us all to a nice dinner. I've just spoken to him, and that's what we're going to do. Thank you so much for your feedback and kind words. I especially appreciate the You're the Jerk votes that included positive feedback and advice. I hope everyone has a happy new year. No jerks here. What a lovely, thoughtful son you've raised. Kudos to you and your wife. Maybe you could have taken the money and done something for the three of you so your son didn't feel disappointed. In the emotion of the moment, though, I can understand why that didn't occur as a compromise. My daughter refuses to get a job because it will hurt her social life at school. So my daughter, Sophia, she's 16 and she goes to a private school that a lot of the richer families send their kids to. My wife works there, so we get a huge discount on the price. I would prefer to send the kids to public school, but our school district really sucks, so private school it is. I truly don't like how the kids act at that school. They're really snobby, to be honest. My breaking point for this was when my son sent me a video of my daughter being extremely rude to a fast food worker. My wife and I discussed it, and we agreed that she needed to get a job so she could understand that these people deserve respect and how awful it feels for a customer to be a jerk. So she's been working at Target and dealing with all of the customers. She hates it, and word got around school that she has a job now. This resulted in people not inviting her out like they used to, since they think having a job is lame. My wife wants to let her quit her job, and we got in an argument about it. I think it's better she learns that they were never her friends in the first place, and she should keep her job. My wife thinks I'm an unfair jerk, and Sophia hates me at the moment. Am I the jerk for this? Not the jerk, but as a former food service worker in high school, I believe that everyone should work at least one full year, so you hit all the holidays at least once, as a food service or frontline store worker, so that they're likely to think twice before mistreating staff after that. Maybe do something similar. She has to work for one full year, including full-time over the summer. OP. I agree with that. I remember getting yelled at the movie theater when I was a teenager. I've never been mean to employees since. I know those jobs suck, and I don't want it to be hard on her. Walking in the service worker's shoes is a great way to learn empathy and how your actions affect others that are working. Not the jerk. While it sucks that your daughter isn't going to as many parties, I think you're correct in that they were never her friends if they think it's lame for a 16-year-old to get a job. Stick to your guns. Your daughter needs to learn that while working isn't always fun, it's important. Unlike her so-called friends, she doesn't have rich parents to bankroll her life. Earning and saving now will teach very important lessons that go beyond showing empathy to working people. You're the jerk. She got the job and hated it. The lesson that the people she was mistreating are people too might be able to ring home. If it has negative consequences for her friend group, that might not be what you want. Am I the jerk for telling my uncle to stop gifting my daughter extravagant trips? So a little backstory. When my sisters and I were kids, every year for our birthdays and Christmas, my uncle would give us cards. Inside those cards would be a printed out picture of some place, like a local theme park, the zoo, aquarium, museums, any place a kid would love to go. After we opened them, he would tell us that we're going to that place. He would say things like, "It's gonna be the best trip of your life." That would obviously make us very excited. Here's the thing, we never went on any of those trips. We never went to any of those places. As a young kid, it would be disappointing, but after a while, I started expecting it and just went along with it. I don't hold any animosity towards him at all, obviously. As an adult now, I understand he did that because he didn't have the means to buy us gifts. Here's where I'm starting to have a little bit of an issue with it. My daughter's 5th birthday was last week. My uncle gave her a card. She opened it to find a printed out picture of a theme park about 2 hours away from our house, and he promised her a fun weekend away. He promised her things like a giant hotel room with a swimming pool, all the snacks she could ever want, and tickets to every show she wants to see at the park. She was over the moon. For the past week, my daughter has talked nonstop about this trip. She keeps telling me how excited she is and how excited her whole class is at school for her. It breaks my heart to look at that smile on her face knowing it's not going to happen. I remember how disappointing it was for me, and I don't want her to go through that. So I texted my uncle. Here's the message that I said. Hi, your message in my daughter's card was so beautiful. Do you think next time you could leave out the promise of an extravagant trip? The thought and gesture is amazing. However, I never know what to say when she asks me when the trip will be. She absolutely loves spending time with you, so I know the promise of even a nice lunch together would make her so happy. He never responded, but my aunt told me he was upset. She said something like he was offended that I implied the only thing he could afford was a nice lunch. I didn't mean it like that at all. I just wanted him to understand that she loves him and wants to spend time with him, and he doesn't need to promise impossible things to make that happen. But I can see why he interpreted it the way he did, and that's where I'm wondering if I'm the jerk. This has been an unspoken thing in my family for so many years, so I'm now wondering if I should have just kept it that way. I just can't stand the thought of her getting disappointed so many times. My sisters and my mom agree with me. My mom even said she wished that she stopped it when we were kids. So, am I the jerk for telling my uncle to stop gifting my daughter extravagant trips? Update. A lot of people asked me why I was being so nice to my uncle, and honestly, I think I underestimated how weird it was because it's been so normalized in my family. I didn't want to start drama, so I went about it as non-confrontational as possible. I agree now that I should have been more direct. Another concern a lot of you have is that I allowed this to happen previously. That's not true. This is the first time he promised her one of these trips. That's why I decided to say something, so this doesn't become a recurring thing. Update. I tried to call my uncle twice, but he didn't answer. I got through to my aunt and explained everything to her. How many times he promised my siblings and I the same thing and we were disappointed. I told her how my daughter was so excited and that if they were actually planning to take her on this trip, I would apologize. She didn't take that well. She told me I was creating unnecessary drama and that my daughter and I are acting entitled to expect them to drop everything to go on this trip. I was shocked and angry. I said, "How dare you say that? She didn't imagine this trip in her mind and then expect you to take her. You promised her this trip. Her disappointment is not entitlement." I said it's not my job to make sure a grown man feels secure in himself, and it's a shame my family spent so long coddling him. I was so mad, I just hung up. I don't feel any ounce of guilt for setting my boundary anymore. For everyone asking if I can take my daughter on the trip, unfortunately that theme park closes for the season this month. But I surprised her with something even better. After the phone call with my aunt, my partner and I decided to book a trip to Disneyland. It sounds crazy and impulsive, but we've been wanting to plan this for a while now and decided it's the perfect time. My kid is entitled to an extravagant trip. Last night, we sat her down and explained that her uncle won't be able to take her on the trip. I tried to be as honest as possible without confusing her. She was unsurprisingly upset and had a lot of questions. After we answered them all, I told her not to worry because her mom and I are taking her somewhere else instead. When she found out it was Disney, she was over the moon. She spent all day deciding which Minnie Mouse stuffy she wants to take with her. I told her to tell her class that her trip got upgraded. All things considered, it's a happy ending. I know I won't always be able to protect her from disappointment, but I sure as heck will do my best. She's getting that giant hotel room she was promised. I wouldn't be accepting any more cards from them at all. OP, don't worry, I'm not. I'm going to be checking cards of any events he comes to. It's a shame I even have to do that, but if it means protecting her from his lies, I'll do it. This family dynamic is just wild. Why has everyone just accepted it? OP, I wish I had a good answer to your question. I have a theory though. My uncle is the boy in the family, and my grandma has always treated him differently than she treats her daughters. You know, the typical self-proclaimed boy mom stuff. She thinks he's perfect, so I'm starting to believe everyone let him get away with this because they didn't want to upset my grandma. I'm sure she's upset with me for hurting her son's feelings. My wife refuses to put our son, who's 6, in public school. How do I move forward? My son is 6 years old, but he's very smart and we're currently homeschooling him. But currently they haven't had a session in weeks. When they do, it's just a few hours, if that. 3 times a week, if that. I'm very frustrated because even though I understand the advantage of homeschooling, more focus on subjects that matter without the fluff, not subjecting him to the dangers of public school. I'd still rather have him endure that than him on his phone constantly throughout the day and not obtaining any social skills of any kind. The wife and I have argued about this so many times, and I told her it's the last year of this homeschooling. She has clinical OCD and babies him a lot. It's her only child, so I understand to an extent. I have 3 others from a previous marriage and 2 live with us, so I don't know if that has something to do with it or not. I'm not sure if counseling, compromise, or ultimatums are in order here, as she absolutely refuses to put him in school, and I've threatened divorce because I find it very harmful for him. Any advice would help. Edit. This is a difficult decision to say the least. To those who had lingering questions, I work from home, so that's how I know. Yes, she gets therapy and medication for her OCD. Yes, I know I'm at fault for not just enrolling him in school behind her back, but this is something I've argued for the last 2 years about. I take his education seriously, but you don't just do what you feel is right without consulting your partner. So I decided to write down my feelings and will give her a choice. I love her and my son. I feel we can make a decision that's beneficial to all, but if she wants to be stubborn, I'm willing to walk away, which is a very hard decision with lots of ramifications. She's gonna wreck him if she's allowed to homeschool him the whole time. If your wife's OCD is driving this issue, it is in your kid's best interest to attend school. Not subjecting him to the dangers of public school, that sounds like an OCD worry. Has her fear impacted the whole family? She desperately needs professional therapy if she isn't already. Her catastrophic thinking is very harmful to your son's own psyche. Her therapist must be aware of how her illness is affecting him. Your wife is neglecting his education. Her mental health issues are deeply affecting her insight and her parenting. I don't know if my story will help your case at all, but my mom tried to do the same with me. I was homeschooled, aka I was at home instead of going to public school. Luckily, I got some formal education for 3 years, so I at least know how to read. My homeschooling was really just getting to sit around and read or play on my phone. She never pushed me to do anything. No math, no science, no history, nothing I didn't want to do. Eventually, my grandparents visited, saw that I was basically a 13-year-old third grader, and they called the authorities. I was taken to live with my grandparents, then eventually my dad. Got to go to high school, but I was bullied horribly for my lack of social skills. I'm in college now, but it took 3 extra years of remedial education to get to basic freshman level. I'm in my mid-20s and I still can't socialize, still can't do division. I encounter huge gaps in my knowledge daily. I literally can only read and write so well because all I did for school was read. Oh, and I also do not speak to my mom, and I called the authorities the second I caught wind of her doing the same thing to my siblings. Update. So after many heated arguments, we agreed that she could finish out this year. If she stays consistent and there is an improvement, I agreed that he will stay homeschooled. But if I don't, then he will go to public school. I'm still afraid she may renege on the deal, and she's afraid I may not give her a fair shot and just disagree no matter what when the time comes. But that's where the trust in your partner is really tested. Now, this took a lot of conviction and tears and emotions. This was not easy to get to because of how strongly we felt about her homeschooling in the public school system. So I suppose any argument about the welfare of our kids is better than petty ones. In the end, I was close to really walking away, but I listened to her feelings and she understood mine. I hope this helps someone in a similar situation. Thanks for all the feedback. Edit. So let me explain. I have a calendar of his lessons and times she will be teaching him. Those will be signed off and checked. I will also have him tested at the end. She has until the end of December this year. If she fails, he'll be enrolled come January of 2024. Also, the nasty comments that we are failing him, that I'm a terrible parent and spineless, not needed. I was and am willing to divorce unless I have my son succeed. I'm sure you all meant it as motivation, I'm guessing. I'm here to fight for my son, but also in a marriage, and you don't just throw away your marriage unless there's no other choice. So if she reneges on the deal, she knows the consequences. I just don't get homeschooling. It seems more of like an excuse to keep kids from external influences than it does about actually educating them. Not to mention, I have a very hard time believing that most parents are even remotely qualified to properly educate their kids. Well, what do you think? Should they keep homeschooling him or not? Please let us know. As someone who was homeschooled for a few years myself, I wish I had never been. I really missed out on some important years of social development. Oh, is that why you're so awkward to be around, Karen? Silence, you fool! Am I the jerk for laughing at the reason my son was given detention and not agreeing to it? I, 36 female, have a son who's 11, in 6th grade, and we'll call him Preston. And the teacher we'll call Susan. She's about 50-something. Some important background is that Preston is pretty skittish and jumpy. He easily gets startled by noises or voices that he doesn't expect, especially if they're loud. I only have seen Susan in person like twice, but she has a distinctly loud, almost thunderous voice. Never heard her yell though, but Preston says it always makes him jump a little, and apparently she's known for being ridiculously loud in general from the other kids and parents. Anyway, I work from home, and I got a voicemail on my phone from Preston using a school phone saying he got detention. Because Susan yelled at some kids that were messing around during work time, he was startled and she noticed, so she made him leave the room, work in the hallway, and call me to tell me that he had disturbed detention next week. I did not believe that was the reason he got detention at all, because that sounds really dumb, and assumed he was just minimizing his role. He does tend to do that when explaining his side when in trouble, so I thought I'd get Susan's side at recess while I went to lunch. I call her and I was completely caught off guard when what she said lined up with everything Preston said. I wasn't sure what to say at first, but I ended up just laughing on the phone before any words could come out. Susan was irritated and asked what was so funny, and I just responded that I was so sure that Preston was lying to me because that was such a ridiculous reason to give anyone detention, and that he's not serving detention just for being startled. She tells me that this is not a suggestion and that I'm being obtuse. I stood firm and asked her if she'd think it was appropriate if her boss yelled loudly at some fellow teachers, "You were startled," and then he proceeded to dock her pay or some other form of punishment, following up with, "I bet she didn't even do jack squat" to the kid she was initially yelling at after noticing Preston. She got quiet for a moment and I thought maybe I convinced her, but then she doubled down and said that failing to serve detention would result in suspension or more, and I told her I'd gladly fight her and the school on this if it came to that before hanging up. I do not intend to punish Preston just for getting startled. We all do it, and it's nothing worth making any issue out of. If I'm being honest, the only reason I posted this is because I vented to my friend about this later, and she actually did not side with me, saying that I was kind of a jerk to laugh at Susan and that teachers don't get paid enough to deal with the things I said. So I want to hear what unbiased people think. I startle easily. If I got in trouble every time I had a reflex response from a loud noise in the classroom, I would have been expelled several times over. That's easily the stupidest thing I've ever heard someone put in detention for. Not the jerk. Talk to the principal about this ASAP and object. I'd be curious if Susan has actually explained what happened yet to those above her. If they have any common sense, they'd see how ridiculous it is. Also, maybe to avoid any retaliation, see if he could change rooms and get a different teacher. This might be US defaultism talking, but I'd say it's pretty early in the school year to do a switch for the good of your son, so this teacher does not pull any more weird power trips like this one. Not the jerk. I work in education too. I understand not getting paid enough, and I've seen some entitled parents, but you don't sound entitled. This is a pretty ridiculous reason to punish someone. Some people get startled easily. I'm one of those people. That's not a reason to punish someone. Definitely talk with the principals about this. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter that "this needs to soak" translates to "I'm too lazy to wash this"? Just like the title says, last night, my 52 female daughter, who's 30, and baby granddaughter were over here and I made oven-baked macaroni and cheese. We took up our plates and I put the leftovers in a container and immediately filled the pan with hot soapy water and we sat down to eat. After dinner we had coffee and then my daughter went to wash the dishes before heading home. When she got to the pan, she said, "Oh, this still needs to soak." I told her that translates to "I'm too lazy to wash that." And I reminded her that it had already been soaking for over an hour and that it wasn't going to get any easier to clean. She said I was just being a jerk and I should just be happy that she had done the dishes in the first place. So, am I the jerk? Edit. My daughter comes home 3 to 4 times a week for dinner. I know it helps save her money on groceries, so I don't have any problem with that, and she always insisted that she does the dishes because I cook the dinner. Second edit. My granddaughter is almost 2, and my daughter is a first-time mom who's co-parenting. For those who are saying that she's a guest, I assure you that she's not. She has a key to the front door, comes and goes as she pleases, still has a room here. Now it has a toddler bed, as they often spend the night. The pan in question is a glass Pyrex. The cheese wasn't burnt on it, and as I said, it was full of hot soapy water already and had been for a while. Final edit. When I got up this morning and saw all the "you're the jerk" votes, I went to visit my daughter. I apologized to her for calling her lazy, and I showed her this post. She read everything over and said to me, "But Mom, you didn't call me lazy. You said leaving the pan to soak was lazy, and you were right. I just didn't want to wash it, and I got snippy when you called me out for it. She then apologized to me as well and asked if she could come over for dinner tonight. I have a pork shoulder in my crock pot right now. Like most mothers and daughters, we don't always see eye to eye, but we do try to resolve our differences. Soaking overnight absolutely helps. Stuff that would have to be viciously scrubbed off slides off easily. It's just one pan, one time. You're the jerk. She did almost all of the dishes in a house she doesn't live in, and you call her lazy. You're the jerk. I live with people who do this. The key is that when they say, this needs to soak, they are never ever around when it's done soaking and it's time to wash. Coincidentally, that's always my job. I agree that this needs to soak for some folks actually means you wash it because it's really messy and I don't want to. That said, and I really truly feel your pain, as I look at these dishes my spouse set to soak last night still in the sink waiting for me to clean, you will never make points with someone by assassinating their character. Hey, it's as soaked as it needs to be. Would you mind washing? Fine. You're lazy? Well, it didn't really end up changing the dish situation. And your daughter called you a rude name, so just judging by results, not an optimal strategy. Unfortunately, I've got to go with you're the jerk for the name calling, but I'm mighty tempted to join you in the club. You're the jerk. No, it needs to soak. And who makes company wash the dishes? That would be a one visit and done for me. Well, what do you think? Is it okay to leave those dishes soaking overnight for someone else to wash or not? Please let us know. I had an ex who always did that. Long story short, we're totally not together anymore. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my friend's furniture after she lied about the amount she needs? I, female 34, have been close friends with Eva, 36, since college days. I and Eva have also been close friends with Julia, who's 33. However, me and Julia had a big falling out about 5 years ago. We come from small Eastern European conservative country. I've moved away soon after college, but both girls are still home and still close friends. During lockdown, Eva started dating a guy, David. As their relationship progressed, and the more she told me about the guy, the less I liked him. When she told me they got engaged, I tried to talk to her about my concerns, but she didn't want to listen. Earlier this year, Eva told me they would get married this fall and asked me to be her maid of honor. I was torn between supporting my friend and refusing on grounds I just don't think he's right for her. In the end, I said yes to being her maid of honor. In our culture, it's custom that best man and maid of honor gift the newlyweds the biggest and most expensive gift, and the rest of the guests use it as a guide, what not to exceed. I own my company and earn substantial income, so I asked her what she needs and wants. She said it would mean a lot if I could help her furnish their new apartment, that their mortgage doesn't leave any room for furniture. I said fine, send me the list and links of what you want, and offered to either buy it for her or give her a check that would cover everything on the list. She sent me the list. It was a lot, but still nothing I couldn't easily afford. About 2 months ago, she called me to say she would have 2 ceremonies, civil ceremony this fall and church wedding next year, but that she wants Julia to be her maid of honor for church ceremony and me for civil. I wasn't okay with this and said she would need to choose. Since I committed to buying her furniture, I even offered to keep that promise if she chooses Julia. She did. It stung a bit, but I reminded myself I was never really for that marriage. Fast forward to 2 weeks ago when Eve calls asking for checks for furniture. I asked her to remind me what the amount was. I knew the rough figure, but not down to a final euro. She rattled an amount that was almost 3 times what I had in my head. After going back through emails, I was right, and she almost tripled the original number. After confronting her the first time, she tried to blame it on inflation, but then said that it shouldn't matter because I can afford it and it's my wedding gift to her. I proceed to rescind my offer to pay for furniture and said I would prefer to stick to our custom and make sure my gift doesn't overshadow that of maid of honor. She called me a jerk for going back on my promise. So, am I the jerk for refusing to honor the original offer? Not the jerk. It's one thing to change your mind and keep the people close to you when on the loop. However, in this case, you were lied to and your financial status was used as a "but you can afford it so it doesn't matter" crutch. If your friend wanted more money towards the furniture or other things and she asked you in advance, I'm assuming you would have fulfilled her wishes. People like this really hurt my heart because it doesn't matter how long you have known the other person, that first lie is never the last lie. Am I the jerk for wanting to divorce because of what my wife said in therapy? My wife, 37 female, and I, 40 male, got married 12 years ago, and she's been my rock, and our marriage was really good. Or used to be really good before we went to therapy. My friend was suffering from a lot of mental health issues, and we were worried about him. He did about 2 years in therapy, and he's doing a lot better. My wife suffered from anxiety and depression, and she's a vet, which is a very high-stress job. I recommended she try therapy too, and she agreed. She went to therapy for 6 months and said she likes it and wants me to go with her. I personally find it a little hippy-dippy, but it couldn't hurt, so I agreed. First 2 therapy appointments went well. The therapist, not her personal one, nailed down one thing about my wife. She's extremely distrusting of other humans. She didn't have a good family growing up, and her father sold her dog, which she said was her only friend, and it really took a toll on her. As an adult, she's relatively well-adjusted, and she's a great mom to our 2 kids. He asked us as homework to do the Big 5 personality test. It was a long questionnaire, and we shared it with him. My trust of others was a 34, and hers was an 8, which is very low. He asked her to tell him what makes her distrust people. She said people are very two-faced and only do what benefits them, and she felt like she has a disadvantage in life because of her morals. She's very kind to people, which is weird because she doesn't trust them at all. She helps people a lot, and one of her friends even said she's the one they go to for advice because they know she wants what's best for them and that she can keep a secret. She does a lot of unpaid work to help stray animals and is often depressed if an animal passes away. But she says she does it because she feels extreme guilt if she doesn't help others, but she feels people don't feel guilt hurting her, which is why she prefers animals to humans. Then the topic of our marriage and trust came up, and she was super tight-lipped about it at first, but then admitted she didn't really trust me all that much. She said that she actually married me because I was honest and being kind of in it for myself. She said she can't stand people who appear kind and compassionate and then lie and backstab people, and prefers an honest person. I was shocked because I feel like I'm an honest but also kind and generous person. But in her eyes, I'm not, but she says it's fine because I'm honest about it. She also admitted she took out the "in sickness and in health" part of our nuptials because she felt like I would divorce her if she got cancer, but she was okay with that because it would destroy her to expect it and then be disappointed, but she felt like she knew where she stood with me. I've been thinking about her words, and it bothers me so much. I asked her out of therapy why she even married me, and she said she knew I was hardworking and honest, and most people are not kind, but that they fake kindness to get ahead. She liked that I didn't, and she felt like she really understood me, and so she felt safe with me. I told her if she didn't think I was a good person, but just an honest one, we should just get divorced, and she got mad and told me that our marriage was good, we're working together well and raising our kids, and there wasn't anything serious. To me, I just realized my wife didn't think I was a good person, and I feel like our marriage has been a lie. Edit. Some of you are asking if my wife loves me and I love her. I definitely love her, but in therapy, she said she thinks she loves me, but also admitted she doesn't know if she can love humans, as humans are generally selfish and destructive and will take advantage of people weaker than themselves. I'm really worried if she loves our kids. She acts like she does, but it's hard to tell because she goes above and beyond for people she worries are going to lie to her. My guy, this is way beyond Reddit's pay grade. I don't think it's that your wife doesn't think you're a good person. I think it's that your wife doesn't think there are any good people, but thinks that you're better than most. Given your wife's view of humanity, that seems to be a compliment. Karen demands I wear a different Halloween costume. I, 21 female, have been friends with Josh, 21 male, since we were kids. Our moms were friends growing up, and we were pretty much raised together. We've continued to stay best friends through all these years, and we both attend the same college. A year ago, Josh started seeing a girl, Lydia, 21 female, and it eventually developed into a relationship. They've been officially dating for 6 months now. I never met her when they were just talking because he didn't know where the relationship was going. When they did start dating, he introduced us ASAP because I'm his best friend. At first, I thought it was just shyness because I'm a close friend of his, so you obviously want to get along with your partner's friend. But it became very clear very quickly that she just had a problem with our friendship. This past Saturday, there was a Halloween party at our friend's place. Lydia was bringing a friend and told Josh that she and her friend would be doing a matching costume. So Josh asked me if we wanted to do a costume together. We decided to go as Steve and Robin from Stranger Things. I guess on Friday he told her this was happening, and suddenly her tune changed, and she wanted to do a couple's costume. He saw what she was doing, and he told her no. So she then texted me, asking if I would change my costume. I said no, because I already spent my money and didn't know if I could even return it. Plus, I'd have to scramble for another costume. All of a sudden, I started getting spammed from random numbers, probably her friends, calling me all sorts of names. The whole time Saturday, she was just sulking, and one of her friends seemed to be consoling her the whole night. It just felt awkward. Josh is telling me we didn't do anything wrong, but I feel like he's biased because he's my friend. I want a third party's opinion. Am I the jerk? Edit. I don't plan on telling him about the texts. None of them were malicious or scary, just mean-spirited. I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt and hope that this was a random act that was totally out of her typical character. Edit. After reading some of your comments, I plan on telling Josh after class today when we meet up for lunch. Edit. I told Josh. Of course, as many of you predicted, he is unsurprisingly really upset with her. Not the jerk. It would have been one thing if she wanted to do a matching costume with Josh. In that case, sorry, but she as the girlfriend takes rank over you as the friend. But that wasn't the case here. Her sulking and having people spam your phone was ridiculous. No matter what anyone says, there's always a certain degree of awkwardness when you start dating someone who has a close friend of the opposite gender. But if she wants to talk about boundaries, she needs to do it in a far more mature way. OP. No, don't apologize for that. I don't expect to ever take priority over his partners. If she wanted to do a costume and he turned her down, but then asked me to do a costume with him, I'd call him out on it. I hope you let him know that you're getting those texts. Because she had to, at the very least, give your number to her friends, which means at best she's okay with it, and at worst she instigated it, neither of which is okay. I would want to know if my partner was having their friends text my friend insults. The one thing I do want to know is if Steve and Robin are a couple. I don't watch Stranger Things. If they are, I think that wasn't the best choice. If you're gonna do a pair costume with someone in this situation, I would personally go with characters that are not coupley. That's not to say you're in the wrong in this situation, just that this wasn't, in my opinion, the best choice for the situation. Steve and Robin are besties and coworkers, but there is zero romantic feelings there. Love that you guys picked Steve and Robin, a beautifully platonic relationship. Your bestie literally waited for his girlfriend to make her decision about her costume, then he followed her lead. She did a duet set with her bestie, he did one with his. Just because she wants to sulk doesn't make it anyone's fault. She had opportunities, and she just didn't take them. Those are self-consequences. Your friend sounds like a good dude. Not the jerk, but she is for how she acted, and so is he for disregarding his girlfriend's feelings. I hope she can find a guy who respects her feelings and doesn't put his best friend's feelings over hers. If I was her, I'd dump him for putting your feelings over hers. Relationships with dudes who have a female best friend never work out long term. You're always going to be a thorn in the side of any relationship he has until he grows up and cuts you off. No self-respecting woman would stay with a guy who has a female best friend. The only women who allow that are ones who have no self-confidence and figure they can't find a decent man who will put her first. My husband and I have a no friends of the opposite gender rule, and it's worked amazing for us for the last 11 years we've been married. He doesn't have any women texting him trying to hit on him, and I don't have any guys trying to get with me. Something sad about the younger generation is how open you all are to this kind of thing. It's like you rebel against traditionalism so much that what results is a cacophony of insanity where people with common sense are unable to find a decent partner. So glad I'm 35 years old right now and not 15. I don't know how I'd survive in this current climate. Edit. To everyone saying I'm not secure in my relationship, I'm very secure in it, in part because of our rules that we've mutually agreed to. To all you women who think it's perfectly acceptable to let your husbands have all the female friends he wants to and to go out to lunch with them, don't be surprised when you find out he's cheating on you, which he definitely will if he's not already. I guess you've never heard of a thing called temptation? You don't dangle a bottle in front of an alcoholic, you don't offer cigarettes to someone who's trying to quit smoking, and you don't let attractive women build close relationships with your husband. No matter how great of a guy you think he is, he will eventually cheat on you with one of them. It's not even his fault, to be honest. It's how men are biologically programmed. If your husband or boyfriend had the opportunity to hook up with a beautiful woman and you never find out about it, 99% of them would because it's just in their nature. Of course, they'd never admit it because you'd flip out on them. But trust me, no man would turn that opportunity down if they knew they'd get away with it. This is common sense that people used to have, but I guess this is a little too much for your little Reddit brains to comprehend. Is what she's saying true, Reddit boy? Would you hook up with a beautiful woman behind my back if you knew you could get away with it? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her best friend's girlfriend? Please let us know. If you did matching costumes with another woman, you'd need a new head. Am I the jerk for changing my adoptive son's name? Names are changed for anonymity, of course. My husband and I took in his cousin Sue's newborn due to her and her partner John's addiction issues. It's not a decision I regret. This beautiful boy is the light of my life, but it was a major life change for us. Especially me, as I was the one who gave up my job and my social life to be basically locked up, isolated during lockdown with a baby. It was supposed to be temporary while they went to rehab. They never went to rehab, nor complied with any of the safety plans set up by the authorities. From 2 months on, they've not seen the baby nor supported him in any way. John's family have not been involved either, as they also refused to abide by the safety plan or any of the authorities' recommendations. Now, 2 years later, my husband and I have full legal custody, and the authorities have closed the file. We've put forth a petition to change the baby's name. At birth, John and Sue named the boy Stephen to honor John's brother who passed of an overdose while partying with John and Sue, who was pregnant. My husband and I have never even referred to the baby by that name. We always called him Davy, his middle name, after Sue and my husband's grandfather. So instead of being Stephen David Jones, we're changing it to David Owen Smith. Owen is after my father, who absolutely adores him and accepted him as grandson from day one. So here's where I might have ventured into jerk mode. My husband thinks I went too far, but I feel they pushed me to the end. John's family found out and blew up my social media and messaging, not husband's, just mine, telling me that I have no right to change the name or honor my father because I'm nothing more than a babysitter and I'm not the real mother. I was called a baby thief, among more vile accusations. So I snapped and responded back that my son's name will honor good men that he could proudly emulate, not like their junky relative who was a crap stain on the world, defrauding the government for benefits and stealing from anyone he could, and contributed nothing to life or society, and his only accomplishment is that he OD'd before he went to prison. Harsh, yes, but I still don't feel like I'm the jerk. Edit for clarity. I did not change the name on my own. My husband was very involved in the decision, as were our 2 daughters who helped name their baby brother. The name reflects our cohesion as a family. We are all Smiths. And my girls came up with the idea of using Pippi's name because it shows he wasn't just adopted by my husband and I, but an entire family. Not the jerk. He's your baby legally, physically, emotionally, all ways aside from DNA. There is no babysitting. He's never going back to them. Never. You are mom, period. Block them and ignore them. If you can, move away from the area. They'll eventually give up, but it'll take an annoying amount of time. Not the jerk. His biological parents only care because it takes away the last bit of control they assumed they had. If you're doing everything for him and he's legally in your custody, you have the right to change his name. If they don't like it, they can get better and fight in the court. Holy cow, that was pretty wretched. I think your words were a bit over the top, no matter how true they probably are. But you just ignited the flame. Sometimes saying nothing speaks louder. Next time, and there will be one, show some grace and restraint. It ticks them off even more anyway. Not the jerk. And if none of these family members are in the child's life, they have zero input. And block them on your social media. All of them. Good luck. Gentle, everyone sucks here. They're speaking from a place of pain and shame. I'm glad the baby has you and your husband, but there's no need to speak like that of people suffering from addiction. They're already as low as you can get, so there's no need to punch down like that. You know the truth of the situation, so do they. They just can't admit it to themselves. Keep being a godsend to the little man. Block the ones who are bent on rewriting the narrative and enjoy your family. Am I the jerk for making a 21-year-old woman shower for the first time in at least 4 days? I, 23 female, and my best friend Holly, who's 21, are completely sympathetic to the fact that having a shower may be a sensory issue for some people, and Chloe, 21 female, all fake names, claims that this includes her. With this being said, she knew she was going away for a week. We had 6 months' notice, on a marine biology field course, sharing a room with 2 other people. We were all friends before this trip. When Chloe is at home, she has a bath once every 10 days and is bathed by her boyfriend. We received absolutely no warning of this, nor did we receive a warning that she would not be planning to shower or brush her teeth for the duration of the trip. Oh, Marine biology is quite labor-intensive and of course involves standing on the beach and literally in the ocean. This trip also includes mile-long walks every day to get to these beaches. Had Chloe at least used baby wipes every morning, then the smell wouldn't have gotten to the point that it did. But oh my goodness, you guys, the smell. It was straight up onions, vinegar, and BO. I threw up twice because of it. Actually, the worst smell from something living that I've ever smelt. At this point, 4 days of walking and climbing rock pools, we could no longer deal with the smell at all. Even our other friends that would walk past the room would gag. I really am not being dramatic. Instead of using antiperspirant or deodorant, she was using Impulse body spray, a perfume, under her arms and on her feet, making the smell a million times worse. To top off all of this, there was an outbreak of bacterial meningitis in our class whilst we were away. It was only at this point that we asked her to shower. We only asked her to shower to reduce the risk of infection, and we also mentioned the smell at this point. We all weren't sure about the ins and outs of this illness and how it spread, and we wanted to be as clean as possible after seeing our classmates and being within close confines of them all day. We all remember what lockdown was like, and we were treating it like that. We did ask nicely. We said the room smelled and that we all had to take a shower. We didn't know it was a sensory issue at this point. Then it would improve the smell and the situation for all of us. Holly showered, I thought, then Chloe left the room to go see some of her friends. We were absolutely baffled. The next day, we asked less nicely. It was ripe. She walks out of the room and returns 5 minutes later with one of our uni lecturers. She had spoken to the uni lecturer and accused us of bullying her. She's also made an anonymous submission to our university's drama Facebook page, which says the following. Edit. I had to remove her post, as apparently some dude named Tyler took it upon himself to find out which uni I attended. Creepy. So here's my rewording of it. I've changed none of the context, just the words that were said, so they can't be found by people like Tyler. If you want to go on this trip, don't. I was bullied so much, I cried every night, and the staff did nothing. I know the 2 girls who did it will see this post, and here's my message to both of you. My family and I aren't happy, and we will be taking this matter to the police for bullying and to the university for non-academic misconduct. We are at university now. You would think people would have matured, but apparently not. Bullying is serious. Now this came as a complete shock. She had not been crying every night, or at least not that we noticed, nor did we give her a reason to cry every night. The only thing we can possibly think of, and we've checked with our other friends, was the mention of the smell and the fact that she needs to take a shower. It hurts us that this has upset her so much, but our point is, if you know you're going away for a week and you do not plan on showering or know you have difficulty doing this, wouldn't you warn your roommates? Plan to use baby wipes. She admitted that she's fine doing that. If we had known about the awful personal hygiene this 21-year-old has, then there's no way we would have agreed to share a room with her. So, am I the jerk? Edit. I'd like to make it very clear we did not avoid her. She came to the pub with us by invitation and sat at our table, along with other things we invited her to. Nor did me and Holly choke at the smell. This was done by people who were not sharing a room with us. We still wanted to be her friend. The people choking from the smell weren't really friends with her in the first place. We made the attempt to tell her delicately, which was us saying the room stank and that we could all have a shower to mitigate the issue. Other than that, we had no idea what to do. Also, don't worry, Holly and I are home safe in our nice-smelling rooms. The first thing we did when we got home was take a shower. Update. Chloe has seen this. Updates to follow when I wake up and deal with this crap show. Update. Holly's final statement. I'm too old for this crap. I'm not disrespecting the fact she may or may not have sensory issues. I just wish it was mentioned before we shared a room with her, which is the least of what should have happened. I just want a quiet life. Message from Chloe last night. If you're going to make a Reddit post about me, at least tell the truth rather than lying. This is going to be taken further now because it's bang out of order. My response. Please, could you highlight any lies from my throwaway Reddit account with changed names? And Holly and I will review them in the morning. I'm entitled to ask the internet if I'm being a jerk, which they decided I was not. We tried, Chloe, and we asked Reddit to try and see other perspectives. She has read it but not responded. Edit. She blocked me. Still no response. What I'd really like is some advice on what to do next. This girl is threatening my academic career, and it's not fair. My class finishes at 3 p.m. We will be speaking to a lecturer. Edit. As someone who was bullied for many years, I know what it's like for people to look at you like you're weird. Chloe owns and brings in reborn dolls to uni, and for the first year, Holly and I were the only two people to defend her. Everyone else looked at the girl like she was crazy. This is why we felt like we should stay in a room with her, and we hoped it would bring us all closer. Boy, was I wrong. I'm sorry I'm too nice, I guess. I'm trying to work on it. I get told a lot that I don't have a backbone. Update. We spoke to the lecturer who organized the trip. She has heard nothing from Chloe at all and agrees that everything was blown way out of proportion and that Chloe has no legal ground to stand on. It seems those empty threats were just that, empty. The lecturer told us that Chloe was originally offered a room on her own and she didn't take it. Mad is an understatement. She's aware of my Reddit post as well as Chloe's Facebook post. The lead lecturer will be speaking to the lecturer who made Chloe shower. She's going to the police because your group asked her to take a shower? Boy, oh boy, I wish I could be a fly on the wall when that complaint happens. She's gonna get laughed out of the police station, not the jerk. Her mental health triggers are her responsibility, and if she's going to be sharing space with others, it's common sense to not smell disgusting. Not the jerk. Does she really have issues or just likes her boyfriend to bathe her? She will suffer harsh insults going forward due to her atrocious stench. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Chloe? Please let us know. Bruh, if you can't handle your friends telling you that you stink and need to take a shower, good luck surviving in the real world. Am I the jerk for saying, I didn't know you weren't the father of your wife's kid to my brother's friend? So I, 32 female, went to pick up my brother who's 29 and his buddies who are 26 and 31 from their game night. Something I regularly do since my brother often volunteers to be my designated driver if I go out to the bars. But as they're getting in my car, his one buddy Jay starts talking about how he can't go to the Friday game because he has to babysit so his wife can go to a movie or something, really sarcastically. Well, I looked over at my brother who's riding shotgun, who has an eye twitch going on. So I know he's probably been complaining about this most of the night, but I let it go, figuring that he's venting and maybe being a jerk, but whatever. He's got a 5-month-old at home, and I know it can be frustrating, and sometimes you need to talk it out with your buddies. Well, it keeps up. I swear it was just non-stop him talking. 10 minutes into the drive, he's mentioned babysitting probably 15 to 20 times. So as we pull up to a red light, I calmly look back at him and go, I didn't know that you weren't the father of your wife's baby. He starts freaking out, asking what I meant. How could I say that? And I guess I was a spark in a keg, because my brother snaps. Well, a father doesn't babysit their kid. You're their parent, so you parent them, you idiot. And your wife is allowed a night out if you're spending 4 hours out with us playing 40K. Now my brother is a big guy, but a gentle giant, so I don't think J or E were expecting that. Well, the whole car went silent, them out of shock. My brother fuming, but I was silently laughing, since he said exactly what I meant, and I'm used to my brother's more wild temper having lived with him. But we dropped Jay off first, and he took off like a scared dog with his tail tucked between his legs, and E was like, that wasn't cool. But I couldn't figure out if he was talking about what I said, or if he was talking about my brother's blow-up. Well, apparently C called E earlier this morning because Jay was sulking around the apartment all night after getting home and is currently being pouty and keeps commenting about how he's a good father and partner. So E called me to say that we were way too hard on him and how it's stressful being a new dad. I don't really think we're jerks here, because he was sounding like a jerk. But maybe I'm just biased, because hearing men say that they're babysitting their own kids is a huge pet peeve both my brother and I learned from our dad. But maybe I'm wrong and we should apologize. Not the jerk. Jay needed to hear that. Not from his wife, who he already resents, but from his buddies who he respects. You were right. A dad doesn't babysit, he parents. Men need other men to call them out when they're being jerks to their family. He's being pouty and sulking because the comment hits home, and sometimes it sucks to look in the mirror and see how crappy you've been. I sincerely hope he takes your brother's rant to heart and adjusts his attitude. His wife deserves a partner, not a babysitter. Thanks, OP, for being one of the good ones. Your parents raised you and your brother right. Not the jerk. Was the delivery harsh? Yes, but it seems that it was needed. If your brother wants to, he can apologize for the manner of telling the truth. And yes, fatherhood is stressful. So is motherhood with the added physical recovery. Keep calling out the idiots. Maybe find a gentler way. Am I the jerk for asking my wife to let me have a turn to talk? I'm 34 male, and my wife, Polly, is 32. Like a lot of couples, we debrief after our work days. Polly works in a high-touch, high-interaction job, so we usually say our hellos, make dinner, and then eat separately so she can wind down a bit. Then afterwards, we sit in the living room and we talk about stuff. Polly has a mild neurodivergence, which means she tells, let's call it branching, stories. She will get bogged down in side stories and background stories that details that, frankly, add nothing to the core story about our workday. That's usually fine, but I've noticed it's getting a bit worse, to the point that by the time she's done, it's basically time to watch a show and go to bed. I mean, I'm spending upwards of an hour just listening and adding, and oh wow, because she says she gets even more distracted when I ask questions. I brought this up with Polly, but she said that I'm asking her to mask her disorder, and that's just how her brain works. I get that feeling, I really do, but I'm starting to feel like I'm a side character here because she takes up all of the airtime that we set aside to debrief. Here's why I might be the jerk. I said, we all change our communication styles based on context, right? And she said that's different, and that masking is not code switching. I just want some time to talk about my day too, but I don't want her to feel bad. Am I the jerk? Polly is 32 years old, and she's completely monopolizing your time together. OP. To be fair to my wife, she really does try. She puts work into asking me how my day was, then asks follow-up questions. No jerks here. Sounds like you need to switch things up. You should talk first so you get a chance to talk about your day, then she can use the rest of the time. I know how your wife feels. For me, branching out like that is the only way I can really vent. OP. Okay, help me understand. Sometimes she brings up things that are genuinely unimportant, like objectively, the color of her boss's shoes doesn't really matter to the story about her big boss meeting. How does it work inside your brain when you're bringing that up? Think of it this way. A neurotypical brain connects point A to point B to point C. For example, I didn't sleep well last night, which meant I got up late, so I was late for work. A neurodivergent brain is more like a spider web. Point A connects to B1, B2, B3, etc. B1 connects to C1, C2, C3, etc. And all those points are interconnected. So for example, I slept badly last night, so I woke up late. I watched a movie where that happened to a guy, and as a result, he got caught up in an espionage case. At one point, he stepped in blood and his white shoes turned red. My boss had red shoes on yesterday. Oh, I need new shoes. My old ones are falling apart. I wonder if that chicken place is still in the mall, and so on. Update. Okay, so it turns out that I was a little bit of a jerk. Like nothing wild, but we had a good talk. Here's what she said to me. Being a teacher is hard. Being a teacher with untreated ADHD is even harder. She said she spends all day trying to contain her brain from doing what it naturally does, which is veer off in random directions that may or may not be relevant to a given conversation. So she does that all day, and she literally looks forward to coming home so she doesn't have to do that. Me bringing it up in the context of how we interact at night hurt her feelings because us interacting time is her space where she can just let her brain be her brain. Is masking the right term there? I don't know. She apologized for using it because she saw it on social media and thought it fit, but it might not. She felt bad for dominating the conversation though, because she's not a monster, and she says that she lashed out because she felt bad, but also didn't want to lose access to the time of the day in which she's not fighting with her own brain. We decided to use advice I received here in Am I the Jerk? I'll go first when we talk at the end of the night. If I regularly go over time, then we'll start using a phone timer to make sure everyone has time to talk. And she'll try to work more interaction into her stories, so my role isn't just saying, yeah, over and over. Thanks for the advice. We're using it, and we're confident it'll work. Mean note left in the cookie dough was never read. I come out looking like a champ. This story just happened a little while ago. I've been craving chocolate chip cookies and was on my way home from errands earlier this afternoon, intending on making some. I could make them completely from scratch. I'm a good cook and a baker, but I usually buy the fridge rolls and an extra bag of chips and bake them, and they taste just as good in my opinion. No one ever complains when I hand them warm out of the oven chocolate chip cookies. I had planned on stopping on the way home and picking the supplies up, when I remembered that I had some frozen cookie dough in the deep freezer. I discovered it a few nights ago while looking for something else in the freezer because the tub was at the very bottom. Yes, my freezer needs cleaning out. I bought the tub of cookie dough a year ago, last spring during a high school fundraiser. My friend Sarah, mid-30s, has an older sister, Julie, late 30s, with kids in high school. The proceeds from the fundraiser were to pay for a chorus trip that Julie's daughter went on over the last summer. So despite me thinking that the cookie dough was far overpriced, I bought a bucket. Hey, I was a band kid. I remember those days. A couple of weeks later, I was at Sarah's house and Julie was there as well. I was in the process of selling one of my old vehicles and Julie's car had just stopped working and she asked me how much I wanted for mine. I told her the price and she smiled a little and said, "What's the sister of your friend price?" I laughed thinking it was a joke and told her it was the same price, that I needed to get that much out of the car and it was well worth the price I was asking. Julie then offered me half of what I was asking in cash. I said no. She added another $100 and again I said no. Julie was no longer smiling and told me I was being greedy and everyone who sells cars bargains and I should have started out higher if I want to get what I was asking. I don't bargain. When I sell something, I sell it for the price I need to get. Eventually, Julie got upset when she saw I wasn't going to come off of my price and called me greedy again, told Sarah she had some crappy friends in front of me, and left. I didn't hear from her or see her again for a few months. Sarah just rolled her eyes and told me to ignore Julie because she could be a real drama queen when she didn't get her way. The cookie dough orders arrived and I picked my bucket up from Sarah. As these things tend to go, I didn't want to make cookies at that moment, so I put the bucket in the deep freeze and promptly forgot about it. It eventually sunk to the bottom of the deep freeze as things got added, subtracted, and moved around. In the year and a half since then, I've been around Julie several times while hanging out with Sarah. At first, she was very cold to me, but eventually she warmed back up, and while we are friendly, I wouldn't call us friends. I do, however, remember Sarah telling me about 6 or 8 months ago that she was so proud and impressed with me that I could be the better person. I wasn't sure what she was talking about at that time, so I just said thanks. I got home about an hour ago and dug the bucket out of the freezer. Think a 1-gallon plastic ice cream bucket, but full of cookie dough. I pulled the top off, and inside the bucket, sitting on top, was the following note on a Post-it. "I hope you choke on this, jerk." I just sat and roared with laughter. This woman thought she was getting back at me and kept waiting for me to react for over a year and a half. All the while, that little sticky note was sitting in that bucket in the bottom of my freezer. Meanwhile, my friend thinks I'm noble, so I'm thinking Julie confessed that she left the note at some point. No one has ever brought it up to me, and I don't plan on mentioning it again. Should someone mention it to me, I'll look them dead in the eye and say, "The cookies were the best I've ever had," and then I'm going to grin. Sometimes revenge is best served cold, and sometimes it's piping hot and melty delicious, as is this cookie I'm chewing on while typing this. I added walnuts and pecans to the dough as well as extra chips. In the end, I got the last laugh. And yeah, a day after she tried to cut me on the cost of my vehicle, a guy paid full price and said the tires alone were worth what I was asking. I, female 27, recently found my partner's, male 28, secret life. We've been together for almost 10 years. We have 3 amazing kids together who are 7, 4, and 10 months. We've basically grown up together. We're not legally married, but he did propose in 2018, right before we bought our house, and we've called each other husband and wife ever since. I'm not going to romanticize our relationship because it's far from perfect, but I always thought we would be the couple to grow old together. He works a very demanding job that my dad also had, so I know the hours are long, and I've been a stay-at-home mom for almost 5 years and homeschool our kids. At first, I stayed home because I was very ill with baby number 2, but then he asked me to stay home with our kids as it would be cheaper than daycare. This year, he asked me to homeschool as well. We've recently been in very rocky waters as I have a never-ending list of expectations and all he has to do is go to work. Because of this, we've talked about separating for a few weeks now, but we don't want to disrupt our kids' routines. Well, in comes a text from my cousin's ex-wife. She explained she needed to reach out to me, girl to girl, and sent me screenshots of my partner on Tinder. The pictures that he had used were taken a couple of days before, so I know it wasn't an old profile. He used a different name, a name that we had agreed on for a future baby number 4 if it was a boy. I of course thanked her, but I really didn't want to believe it. He's always talked down on cheaters since his dad was a huge cheater, and it caused a lot of trauma for him and his family. So I made a catfish Tinder to see for myself. Well, I had no luck, so I just pretended like nothing was wrong and went about our daily lives for a few days. It was extremely hard, especially because I'm not good at hiding my feelings at all, but I couldn't stand the not knowing anymore. Yesterday, I made one of his favorite dinners and even made a pie so he could go into a food coma and go to bed earlier. It worked. He was out by 8:30. I let my older kids stay up to watch a few movies so that bedtime was postponed while I snooped. I have never snooped in his phone or even had a reason to do so. We both have each other's passwords and will use each other's phones often. It's a line that I've always said can't be uncrossed. I found so much, all in plain sight. Not much was hidden. No, Tinder was not on his phone, but he was texting 3 different numbers that were obviously girls from there. They all called him by the fake name. They sent pictures back and forth. I found at least 4 different Snapchat threads that were him emotionally cheating with more girls, calling each other babe and honey bun, which is what he calls me. Texts that say he's a single dad and the mom doesn't want anything to do with the kids. All sorts of pictures sent back and forth, and when I thought that was it, I found the hidden pictures folder. I used my phone to take pictures and videos of everything and send them to my email. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with them yet, but I have them. Also, I looked back at our text thread on the date that correlates with the video, a month after I gave birth, and saw it was one of the many times he would say he's going out with the boys. He even texted me that night and told me how much he loved me and how he was going to take me to breakfast in the morning. It's funny because I would cry to him around that time and ask if he wasn't in love with me anymore. I would cry and cry, and he would hold me and say that he only loved me and that he could never hurt me like his dad hurt his mom. I haven't slept. I don't know him. I'm literally sick to my stomach. I've thrown up all night. But when he woke up this morning, I pretended like I was too tired to get up with him. And the even funnier thing is I have nothing. No money, no family to turn to. I own nothing on my own. We both own the house. No credit cards, bad credit, literally nothing. He didn't even have a lot of money, or good credit either. But I'm completely dependent on him, and I'm not sure how long I can pretend like nothing is wrong. So I turn to you, Redditors. Please tell me what to do. Please give me any useful advice. My best friend is getting married today, and I truly think they're making a mistake. I've tried my best to be supportive and gentle in my language, if I must be honest, but I'm bursting with frustration. I know this is going to sound petty, and honestly, I'm likely a bad friend for judging, but please hear me out. My friend is 23, marrying a man of the same age, and they've been dating for about 8 months. At 5 months, they told me they were getting engaged, and that they were going to be at the courthouse on Halloween to get married. The only people invited are both of their mothers. A proper wedding ceremony will be held in the spring where everyone will be invited. I've already been told I'm one of the groomsmen/maids of honor. I'm the best man of the bride, if there's a better name for that. Why do I have a problem with this? Because the very short time they've been dating, my best friend is very quick to fall in love and very quick to fall hard. Every person they've dated in the past 5 years has had the same thing said about them. The best person they've ever dated, and I've never loved someone so much. I genuinely don't mind it normally, as they have lots of love to give, and how much they see love is one of their charms. But it has led to them getting hurt very often, especially by terrible guys who take advantage of their feelings, usually financially. I'm worried they're jumping into this relationship too fast. I've met the fiancé, and I don't hate the guy. He's okay and hasn't shown many red flags. He even makes my friend happy, so I should be happy. The only big red flag is his inability to hold a job, quitting or getting fired frequently, especially quitting without telling my friend. I've talked about my concerns about them rushing this, but they brushed them off and gave me the same, "I've never loved anyone like this before." So I've bit my tongue since and try to support them. I even went shopping with them to pick out the wedding outfit like a best friend should. You've already talked about your concerns, and that's where it should stop. You're a spectator henceforth to this wedding. Watch quietly. Your friend needs to make her own choices and learn from them. OP. Yeah, I have no plans on talking to them about my concerns anymore or doing anything beyond supporting and witnessing. Even if this does not work out, I don't ever plan on saying, "I told you so," because I truly want this to work for my friend. They've dated for 8 months and he's had more than one job during that time? OP. He's had 3 that I'm aware of. Oh wow, that's not good. How are the parents not railing against this union? I've switched jobs 3 times this year, each time for a much better opportunity and a raise. This sort of context is important. Just changing jobs isn't bad these days. If I could go back in time, I wouldn't have invested so much time in my friends' love lives. All it did was cause tension between friends, and I wasted so much time and energy. My advice is to let it be. Nothing you say will change her mind. Just be there when and if she needs you. My daughter flipped out on me for eating her shrimp. I, male 51, live with my wife who's 49 and our 3 kids. our daughter, who's 24, and our two sons, who are 21 and 14. I pay the mortgage, I pay the bills, I pay for groceries. My wife works, and her money goes for our vacations and retirement. We're happy with this arrangement. She makes about $85,000 a year, and I make more. My daughter has a job that she got after college. My middle kid works part-time while he's in school to pay for extras. All three of my kids will graduate their undergrad with no debt. I work weird hours and shifts. I'm writing this at 3:30 in the morning because I just got home. There was a note waiting for me on the fridge going off on me for eating a box of firecracker shrimp I found in the freezer and I made myself for supper yesterday. Apparently, it was something my daughter had bought for herself. There wasn't any note on it in the freezer or anything. This isn't the first time that this has happened either, but I think it will be the last time. I'm thinking of talking to my wife and asking her to tell my daughter that anything in the freezer or fridge that isn't labeled is fair game, or that she has to start paying for all of my groceries that she's consumed. Because she does not buy the basics. She eats all the groceries that my wife buys. I don't really have a problem with her living here rent-free and eating my food while she saves money. I have a problem with her calling me a jerk for eating food I found in my freezer in my house. I should probably add that in the past, I have found out that more than once, food she got actually just meant food that she added to the grocery list that I paid for and her mom shopped for. Am I the jerk? Edit. To answer a bunch of common questions. Just spoke to my wife and my daughter. The shrimp was purchased by our wife using our budget. It was frozen shrimp, not takeout. My daughter has now agreed that if there is food that she purchases with her own money, that she will label it and I will not eat it. And I will make sure that the boys know as well. As for rent, I still want her to save her money. Kids have it hard enough these days. You're the jerk. Because as the parent, you should just talk to your daughter instead of continuing this weird, passive-aggressive, indirect communication by having your wife do it. Your daughter is probably going to have roommates when she moves out. There's a good opportunity to teach her about living with other adults. Everyone sucks here. It was an honest mistake. However, your attitude about your mistake was really harsh. You could tell her to put a basket in the fridge or freezer for her stuff. Yeah, she should label it, but I know I wouldn't think of labeling food where I live. It's weird that you couldn't resolve this in text. It also seems like you're looking for a reason to charge her rent. If you're going to do it, you should have told her when she started working. Doing it as punishment is weird. Info. Why are you so unaware of what groceries are fair game? My significant other and I both work and we both plan the weekly meal plan and grocery list. If you leave all the planning, shopping, and meal prep to your wife, this is a you problem. It seems pretty straightforward. If you didn't ask someone to get you firecracker shrimp, it's probably not your firecracker shrimp, unless you're still yearning for the 50s. You're the jerk. As usual, what the heck are these comments? You know you didn't buy that shrimp yourself. You admit she bought it. So you want permission to eat food you didn't pay for? But the person you should have asked about it was the person it belonged to, not Reddit. And since she was sleeping, you had the whole rest of the fridge and pantry of your groceries to eat. If you're bitter that you pay for groceries and want your kids to contribute to the bills, then be an adult and say so. But that doesn't give you the right to eat prepared food somebody else bought, labeled or not. Would you eat something out of the communal work fridge just because it wasn't labeled, knowing you didn't bring it? Are you that guy? You're the jerk. You are one family. Who gives a hoot that you pay for the groceries and your wife the vacation and retirement? If you claim the groceries now, she has the right to claim the retirement money. What? That doesn't even make sense. You're the jerk. So you think because you're the man of the house, you can just eat whatever you want to in the fridge, even if it doesn't belong to you? That's BS. You need to get your daughter's permission before you eat anything that belongs to her. You honestly sound like a horrible father, so don't be surprised when she goes no contact with you. Your kids deserve so much better than an inconsiderate jerk like you. Honestly, if I was her, I'd post a video about this on TikTok to call you out and make sure your job finds out about it. People like you really need to be held accountable. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his daughter? Please let us know. Reading comments on Reddit is the #1 way to lose faith in all of humanity. I took our son trick-or-treating without my wife. I'm 29, male, and my wife is 30, and we have a 4-year-old son. As Halloween approached this year, my son let me know that he wanted to dress up as characters from his favorite show at the moment. These aren't costumes that are readily available to buy, so I was going to have to do some crafting magic and make them myself. I'm a stay-at-home father, and my wife is something of a workaholic. She could cut down on her hours if she wished, but she's always been a very work-driven and focused person. She's not very maternal. Because of this, my son has never been very attached to her. They have time together at dinner, but even during times when my wife is off work, like during bath time and bedtime, it's always just me. This isn't me complaining. I signed on for the stay-at-home dad life, and I enjoy every minute of it. I just wish, for his sake, that she would be more involved. About a month before Halloween, my son asked if my best friend, who's 35, male, could dress up with us. He had already assigned himself and me as a specific character, and I had started working on the costumes, so I figured it wouldn't be a big deal to add one more. He adores my best friend. They have such a sweet bond, and have since my son was born. I asked best friend if he wanted to join us for trick-or-treating, and he immediately agreed. During dinner the night following this, I asked him what character he wanted his mom to be. My son said he only wanted to go trick-or-treating with daddy and best friend. Over the course of the next month, I would casually bring it up again to my son, and he continually gave the same answer. My wife was clearly hurt, but would always brush it off. Fast forward to Halloween night. I had spent weeks working on these little costumes for all of us. As we were getting ready, my wife and I got into a big argument over the fact that she didn't have a costume. I pointed out that if she had wanted me to make her one, she could have requested I do so, or she could have gotten one for herself. She said it was ridiculous that the three of us were doing a matching theme and leaving her out of it, and that she wasn't even going. In the end, best friend and I took him trick-or-treating alone, and my wife still isn't speaking to me because she can't believe I actually went without her. Am I the jerk? I have to go with you're the jerk. I'm halfway waiting for the update where you turn the guest room into an art studio for the best friend without discussing it with your wife. Info. Why did you let your 4-year-old exclude mom and kind of just roll with it? Especially since you say that she was clearly hurt by it and also that you wish they had a stronger bond. Not making a judgment yet, just looking for more clarification on your thought process when he said he didn't want her coming. Not downplaying that she needs to make an effort because she obviously does. It would be great if wife was more involved with your son. It would have been nice if she had expressed a definite interest in participating so you would have had a costume ready for her. When you were planning it, perhaps it would have been a good parenting moment to remind your son that being left out of the fun can hurt people's feelings and there was no reason to exclude mom. You mentioned it would be nice if she was more involved with your son. Maybe she needs a little help feeling wanted since you and your son have already figured out your style of interaction and hers might be a little different, but she doesn't know what it is yet. Maybe doing things together with her, but being careful to make sure she doesn't feel like a third wheel would be a start if part of the problem is her not knowing how to connect with him. I just worry that there is a disconnect because she's gone for too many hours, and then the lack of connection makes her work more to cover and hide being hurt. And what might otherwise have been fixed remains broken forever. Of course, I could be totally misreading the situation. You're the jerk. You do not let a 4-year-old decide who is included in family activities. You're the adult in charge, and you should have made sure to include your wife, with a costume that matched. Your entire post comes across as judgmental and whiny. You seem to want to prove that you're the better parent. What's that about? If you're unhappy, talk to your wife. Don't use your son to punish her. Do better by your wife and your son. My Karen ex used me to sign for her new apartment, so today I canceled it. I, 25 male, have been on and off with my first girlfriend, 28 female, for the last 3 years. I've always ended the relationship, sometimes on good terms, sometimes just by stopping talking to her. I've always cared deeply for her and her kid, to the point where I'd take a bullet for them. Over the years, I've spent over $20,000 on getting her an apartment, helping with bills, furniture, and everything in between the years. We've been talking for a few months once again recently, and I fall for her again every time. I just co-signed for another apartment for her to get her out of her toxic family's house. She was set to move in on December 8th. However, yesterday I wasted 5 hours driving with my phone dead to pick up a bed and furniture for her kid, only to get there and not be able to get it because of the rain. I get home and finally charge my phone, only to see she's texted 3 times asking what time I'll pick up the furniture. Then a simple good night text from her and that's it. I felt used all over again. Feeling like crap, I couldn't sleep. So I texted her asking where I stood on the relationship and if she actually cared about me. 2 hours later, and she's only opened it and not even responded. I called her out on it, and she said she was busy at her girlfriend's house staying the night. So I told her I didn't feel appreciated or loved at all. With no response, I didn't sleep much at all. Feeling like this is just going to be another left turn into the same stuff from the past, I canceled the lease, and now she can't get an apartment on her own with her credit. I don't know what to feel because I feel like a jerk, but I didn't want to feel used again. Like I was always going to be the last thing on her mind. Edit. She's always been the one to reach back out to me even when I've been in a different relationship. I know my actions were impulsive and immature, but they came from very biased feelings that I never really healed from in our past together. During our first stint of being together, after getting her a new apartment and furnishing the entire thing to help her get custody back of her kid, things turned for the worse. She and her daughter got sick back to back. She wasn't able to work, so I paid her car note 2 months in a row, her car insurance and rent, while also trying to pay my rent. I also would grab her groceries and gift baskets to only drop off at the door and leave because she couldn't see me so I wouldn't get sick. This continued for 3 months. So eventually, I picked up another job to make sure I could afford her stuff and my rent. The only thing that kept me going was writing a love note every week and slipping it under her door. This was the one thing that kept up the romance because most of the time she found them adorable and would ask for more. Eventually, after she got a speeding ticket and wanted me to pay for it, something in me flipped, and that was the first time I said I wouldn't pay for something. That was our first breakup, even though I paid for the ticket and wished the best of luck. I just couldn't do it anymore. After all of that, I never got consolation from her for it because she would always tell me she didn't like bringing up the past. You were being used. Thank goodness you realized it. Please move on and find someone who deserves you and won't take advantage of you. You did nothing wrong. You don't have to co-sign an apartment if she doesn't care about you. Also, get a car charger for your phone. Phones are important. So, she calls you and tries to get back together whenever she needs something, and after she gets your help or cash, she drops you again? Walk away. Permanently this time. Honestly, you sound like you need therapy. Either you are going to take her seriously and be a good boyfriend, which yes, includes helping her financially when you can, or you need to just leave her alone and let her find a real man who's not afraid to commit. You remind me so much of my ex who strung me along time and time again. Well, eventually, I realized his brother would make a much better father to my kids than he ever did. So now I'm with him, and of course my ex is furious, but there's nothing he can do about it. Love me when I'm here, or miss me when I'm gone. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for canceling the apartment or not? Please let us know. Nothing makes people do more stupid things than love, especially when it's a one-sided love that's not returned to you. Am I the jerk for not treating my stepkids equal to my son? When my husband and I got married, we had an extensive prenup, and we agreed that we would each be responsible for providing for our own kids. He came from a marriage where his ex-wife milked him for cash, and I also liked the idea of separate finances. We each pay our own bills, groceries, and the mortgage we split 40-60, him 60, me 40, based on the fact that he has 2 kids and I have 1. I understand that to some people it might seem a bit roommate-ish, but I've loved it and I think it works out great. I don't care about the money he wastes golfing because it's his money and not mine, and I can get expensive sushi all the time. Growing up, my parents would always yell at each other about finances, nitpicking each other's spending. When my husband and I got married, I was in grad school and he worked in finance. He lost his well-paying job and now makes 50% less, whereas my career has flourished in recent years. My son turns 15 soon and he's been asking for a Model 3. I plan on getting it for him because I think he deserves it. My husband recently came to me upset because my son was talking about how excited he is to get the car. That upset his step-siblings who haven't and won't be getting cars. My husband said he wants to change how our household bills are split. He wants me to pay 80% and him 20%. His reasoning is because with his pay cut and his ex-wife still taking a large chunk in child support, he isn't able to golf or live the same lifestyle as before. He also wants me to buy each of my stepkids a car this Christmas. I basically told him he's out of his mind, and he complains that his ex-wife used him for cash and made him pay all of the bills, but that's what he's trying to do to me. He didn't really know how to respond to that, but isn't talking to me now. I kind of find it funny that when I made significantly less money, he had no issue with our finances being split, but now that he's the one making less, it's an issue. Am I the jerk for not wanting to buy my stepkids cars and fund the family? He wants me to top off their college funds too. Edit. I am a positive role model in my stepkids' lives. We're pretty close. I go to their sporting events, plan their birthday parties, etc. But they have 2 living parents who are more than capable of fully supporting them if they tried hard enough. so I just don't feel like it's my place. The kids all know that my husband is responsible for my stepkids' cars and college, and I'm responsible for my sons. They're just disappointed with their dad right now because their friends all have dads who bought them nice cars, which has made my husband kind of mad. I don't think having cars and college funds are a necessity though, more of a nice thing to have if your parents can afford it. So I feel like my husband should either step up to the plate and get a better job or get off my back. Not the jerk. And you've made super fair points about how he was fine with the split when he was making more. I don't see why you should have to finance his lifestyle now. But I don't see how you two are going to maintain your marriage at this point unless your husband comes around and is back to being fine with the original agreement. Either way, it's going to cause problems. If your stepkids are getting a car, it should be bought by their parents, and you could help with a small amount if you'd like. But buying 3 cars all by yourself is ridiculous. Info: how often do your stepkids stay with you? OP: my stepkids are with us the majority of the time. They see their mother every other weekend, as well as whenever they ask to. I can afford to buy the 3 cars, I just don't want to out of principle. I don't think he would buy my son a car if the roles were reversed, which is okay. He's my son, and I acknowledge that I'm responsible for providing for him. Honestly, I think the cost split is unfair. Although he has 2 kids to your 1, if he's paying child support, it means they're not living with you full time. I think you should revisit that at least down to 50-50. But that doesn't make you the jerk, especially when he was fine with keeping his money when he made more. As for the cars, no, you don't have to buy his kids cars or pay for their college. They have 2 parents to do that. However, I must say this. If you buy your kid that kind of car for his first car, that's insane. Just nuts. The first car is a practice car. He needs to work up to it with a nice used car, and then maybe a new one for graduation or something. I will say this whole relationship does not strike me as much of a marriage with all this division. I mean, do you not even like your stepkids? It's just not nice to flaunt wealth in anyone's face, but especially in front of people that live with you and don't get to share in it. And a Model 3 is flaunting it. No 15-year-old deserves a car that expensive. OP: a Model 3 isn't expensive. It's safe and new. I wouldn't want my kid driving around in an old beat-up car and end up broken down on the side of the road. I can't exactly take money with me to the grave, so I'm not sure why I wouldn't spend it on my kid. Its base model is around $40,000, and I didn't say get a beat-up car, I said a used car. There are plenty of nice, safe, reliable used cars for half that cost. It's your money, but $40,000 on a car for a teenager screams that you have lots of disposable income, and apparently you have no desire to spend any of it on your husband or your stepkids. Again, you don't have to, but if you love them, you should want to. OP: buying them each a new Tesla and matching their college funds to my sons would cost around $200,000. I could do it, but I don't feel like I should have to spend that kind of money on them to prove that I care about them. I buy them very expensive birthday and Christmas presents, but ultimately, no, I don't love them as much as I love my son. I couldn't imagine loving anyone as much as my own kid. They have a mom who isn't me, and I'm sure she feels the same. Who the heck thinks you should buy them each a Tesla and match the college fund? Where did I say that? Heck, I don't think any teenager should be getting a Tesla, not even Elon Musk if he was a teenager. Also, I didn't say you had to love them as much as your son. It just doesn't seem like you love them at all. It really doesn't have to be about extremes. You don't have to treat them equal, but gestures would be nice now and then. I'm 26 female. My fiance, 28 male, told me I wouldn't be able to pull anyone else, and I'm offended. My fiance and I have been together for almost 5 years, engaged for 6 months. We've never had issues where one of us was mad for a long time until this, and he, my mom, and friends think that I'm overreacting. I had a dream some nights ago that I ended up dating a famous actor by accident. We both had dreams where crazy things happened and told each other about it. I told him in the morning and we laughed about it. However, he made a comment about how my dreams are always extremely delusional. I asked him to elaborate, thinking it would be something funny, and instead I was met with a comment about how I wouldn't be capable of pulling someone half as attractive as said actor, let alone him. I was taken aback and he doubled down and told me to be realistic, that most men wouldn't even look my way because I look like I'm already taken and stopped looking interesting some time ago, and now even more with the engagement. I told him that I don't want any men to look my way, but the implication of his words hurt me. He told me it was irrelevant because we're together and I wouldn't leave him and to stop being offended over something I asked and left. For the record, my weight, hair, and general appearance have stayed the same, and I'm low-key high maintenance, so this isn't me letting go of myself or something. I called my mom for reassurance, and she agreed that I was overreacting. I called my friends for the same purpose and was met with the same response. I feel very hurt because I love my fiancé and I find him very attractive, and I know other people do. I'm grateful that he chose to be with me, and that makes me value him even more. I thought he thought the same about me, but apparently he thinks I wouldn't ever leave him because I can't pull anybody. That somehow is making me feel like he doesn't value me as I do. And worst of all, that I may be wrong about how I feel, but I can't control it. Am I overreacting? If so, how can I manage this so this doesn't affect us long term? It's been almost a week and he's still being short with me because I look like I'm miserable about a petty thing. I just want things to go back to normal. Edit. The actor was Adam Driver. I've had a few people asking me who it was. Edit 2. My closest friend group is a 4-girls group where I'm the only one with a relationship and that has ever been in one. Another detail someone messaged me to include, I do have other friends, but I haven't told them anything given the response I got from my closest circle. Finally, I have a long history of being super sensitive. I've cried over minor things my whole life, which is why it's not surprising for my closest ones to immediately call me out on it. I'm on therapy addressing that, my pushover nature, and my self-esteem issues. Thank you to everyone who's commented and given me support. I will be forcing him to talk to me today to see if this is in any way salvageable or if I just lost half a decade of my life. I don't know what your friends or your mom are on, but I think that's a crappy comment to make to your future wife. It's an insult if you ask me. Maybe I could have got past it if he had apologized afterwards. Instead, he doubled down and said you're overreacting and you should get over it. He's getting too comfortable in the relationship. He's trying to lower your self-esteem so you will think that no one else will want you other than him. He's also telling you he doesn't find you as attractive anymore. Don't let these comments slide. When someone starts saying these things, I would take it seriously as it's a big red flag. This kind of behavior will only get worse. For me personally, it would be a deal breaker because I love myself more than my partner, and I couldn't tolerate my partner seeing me that way and saying things like that. You are definitely not overreacting. That doesn't sound healthy. Has he shown this type of response in the past? As a man, I feel like my response would have been something along the lines of, if you left me for Brad Pitt, I wouldn't even be mad. And also as a man, I would expect the same from my significant other, not some demeaning response. Calling me on a day off? Cha-ching! This happened well over a year ago. As a unionized employee, I get every third Friday off. On my day off, I'm playing some video games and I get a text from the boss. I know it's your day off, but whatever, that's easy to ignore. But then I get a second text, and after I ignore that, I get a call. Boss, I know it's your day off, but our phones are down. Me, no worries, I'll handle it. We hang up and I call our phone provider. I'm the IT and the contact there, and this isn't my first call ever to them, so I literally have their service department saved in my phone. I call, I register the problem, and they say they'll look into it. I provide them my boss's name and extension, and to call him when it's fixed. I then call my boss back and let him know that they'll call him ASAP. But now for the malicious compliance bit. Our contract stipulates a minimum call-in of 4 hours, meaning that you cannot pay me less than 4 hours for a day, unless it's by my own choosing. If you call me in for an hour and send me home, I get 4 hours of pay. But wait, there's more. We also have an overtime clause that pays overtime at 150%. And lastly, we have a clause that says all overtime must be approved by the boss. Combine all of this in one delightful batch, and you get a 10-minute call that results in 6 hours of banked time off. I went right back to my video games, filled out my timesheet the week after, and said, I know it's your day off, but is implied consent for overtime. Minimum call out of 4 hours at 150% is 6 hours. Almost an entire day off with pay in exchange for a 10-minute call. Thank you very much. Bonus. Guess who has 2 thumbs and has since then never been called in on his day off? This unionized guy. Edit. Didn't think this would take off like this. Of course, anyone saying this isn't malicious is right. Sadly, we live in a world where a lot of people are expected to work beyond their scope, and while my experience should be normal, it really isn't for a lot of people. The expectation my boss had, I presume, is that I'd write the 15 minutes down. We write our times in blocks of 15 minutes, and be content with that. We all deserve A, to be left alone during our time off, And B, to be compensated and compensated well if we're asked to give up time off to do a work thing. You work to live, after all, not the other way around. And this is why I would never join a union. Because you don't want better pay and benefits? Oh, I do, but I also balance a bit of common sense and logic. I would not have gone in either unless paid, but the 2 minutes of work you did and then charged a fortune is one of the reasons many businesses no longer exist, just a different perspective. Then good. If a business can't afford to pay decent wages and benefits, then it shouldn't be a business anymore. Every worker should use their benefits to the max, just like how businesses already try to maximize their earnings. Employment is a business relationship, not a family. My niece was the reason my marriage fell apart, and now she's completely narcissistic like her mother. About 7 years ago, my ex-husband and I had a decent marriage. It wasn't perfect, but marriage rarely is. Our kids were all well behaved, we both worked, and we had our kids in activities outside of school to keep them healthy and active. My sister had moved a few years prior about 6 hours away from the family. She uprooted her kids because she needed a change after her divorce. The problem was she basically began to act like a teenager, staying out partying all night, and made her oldest kid look after the younger two as well as her new friends' kids too. Summer vacation approached that year, and my mom asked me to go pick up my nieces and nephews for a month-long visit. We arranged for the oldest to stay with me and the younger two to stay with my mother so that the oldest would get a break. When I arrived to pick them up, my sister told me that her oldest did not want to come, but she was forcing her to. For the first 2 weeks, my niece cried every day. I finally approached her and I told her I was sorry she didn't want to be here, but she cried harder and she told me she wasn't crying because she didn't want to be here. She was crying because she didn't want to go back home. My husband and I spoke about her moving in with us at 18, but she told me if she returned home, she wouldn't make it to 18. He was very against taking her in, not because he didn't love her, but because it was a financial burden to our family and a fight with my family if we did. But I believed my niece's threats and I fought. First him, then my sister and my mom. We ended up keeping my nieces through tons of fights. We got very little to no help financially or emotionally, but we did the best we could by her. But it was a crack, like the kind you get in your windshield, and it just keeps getting bigger every time something small hits it. My niece got pregnant as a teen, just like her mother. The crack grew. My husband and I fought about money. The crack grew more. By the time my niece moved out at 17 and back in and out again, the windshield was beyond repair. My now ex and I recently divorced, and while my niece isn't the only reason, she's absolutely the reason the windshield got weakened enough to break. Now she's 21 and she treats me as disposable. She only calls on me when she wants something from me and often ignores my calls and texts. She told me she thought I had the perfect family and that she regretted moving in with us because she was wrong. Never once thinking she was what changed the dynamic so much. To say that it hurts my feelings is an understatement. My ex and I are building a friendship again, and I'm thankful for him. My birthday just passed, and not one member of my family acknowledged it, outside of my kids. But my ex and his stepmom both did, and I'm very grateful for them. It's hard when you hear blood is thicker than water over and over to realize blood family sometimes is unhealthy for you, but I'm learning. Edit. Since I see this recurring in the comments, let me say that both me and my ex-husband did everything to make my niece feel welcome and safe. We had her in therapy, we taught her to drive, and took her to soccer practice and drama club and everything else she asked to join. I don't blame my niece fully. 1, she was a kid. 2, I made my choices and I could have said no. My ex-husband did say he didn't want to take her in until she was 18, but he also helped me when I begged to do it. I believe I'm allowed to be frustrated at my niece for her parts, and no, I would absolutely never say any of this to her because you just don't say that to kids. Thus, this ranty post on Reddit to get out some of my negative feelings. Trust me, I own my own faults, but that's a whole different post to make. Tell her something like this. You are now old enough to decide if you want a relationship with me and how that looks. Every relationship has to be nurtured by both sides to be healthy and strong. I will only put in as much energy as I feel is being reciprocated. I really hope that you want to be good friends because I love you. I told something like this to my little brother when I felt similar to your feelings about your niece. That was 10 years ago, and we're the best of friends now. Good luck. Cut your niece off. Stop enabling her. She made her decisions. It's not your responsibility anymore at all. I would start by telling him that he was right. Your niece didn't cause the crack. You did when you disregarded your husband's feelings about taking her in. Now you're suffering the consequences of a decision that you made and blaming a kid instead of taking responsibility. Real class act. Someone talked down to me, so I got her fired. She was from the HR department. This was back in 2019. I had worked at a call center for 2 years. I took phone calls, trained people, worked overtime. Sometimes they'd even just have me walk around and answer any of my coworkers' questions. They scored our calls, and I never received below a 90. Now for Amy had only been working there for about a year. She instantly disliked me because I dress a bit alternative, professional, but alternative. I was on some new medication for my brain, and it didn't react well. It made me more blunt. A customer was arguing with me, saying I was stupid for not giving them a promotion item that was not going on. So I told them flat out that I was right. She started screaming, so I said, "I'm not taking this," and hung up. Seemed reasonable at the time, right? If I was right, there wouldn't be a story. I got called in the day after next. They fired me for hanging up without a warning. Edit. My manager was included in all the meetings, and they talked to me the day before. Also, a hang up without 3 warnings was an automatic fire. I told them I'm on new meds because I'm bipolar, so they couldn't fire me for that, but they needed paperwork proving that I'm bipolar. Fair enough. Then comes 3 months of calling numbers, getting things sent out, only to have Amy tell me they didn't receive anything. When we had meetings, she would talk down to me, tell me being good at my job didn't matter because I was only still there because of my excuse with my meds. She even ignored 2 of my managers saying I deserved to stay because I was great at working. She kept on saying my paperwork was lost. Later, we were all work from home, so I decided to move, and she found out, telling me she had to approve it before I did so, and that she would approve it. I moved, and about 2 weeks later, she broke me. She had scheduled me for 3 12-hour days in a row, which I said I cannot work those in a row. She didn't schedule me directly. She went through some managers who didn't like me. I was told by one of my managers who did like me. Amy told me I needed to show up or there would be actions taken against me. I got online and started working. At lunch, I logged off and sent an email to everyone saying that I had great managers and coworkers and it was a great job, but sadly, I just couldn't stay because Amy was making my job rough. I named her in that email. Then I logged off and went to sleep. I got a call the next day from the head of HR begging me to come back, saying that Amy decided to leave for a different opportunity and said we could discuss a raise. I said thanks, but no, and never looked back. If you enjoyed everything about it but Amy, and if they fired Amy and offered you a raise immediately when you made it clear what was going on, why did you decline? OP. I got a better job offering me a few dollars more. Plus, it was a call center. It really ruined my mental health. I liked everything except Amy and the customers. Am I the jerk for upstaging my sister's wedding announcement with my adoption news? I've been in the process of adopting a kid for the past 2 years. It's been an emotional roller coaster, and only a handful of close family and friends knew about it because I didn't want to jinx it until everything was final. My older sister, let's call her Emma, got engaged around the same time I started the adoption process. Our family has been thrilled, planning for her big day next summer. Emma always has been the type to love attention, but I've been supportive and helped with preparations whenever I could. This past weekend, I received the final confirmation. The adoption had gone through, and I was officially going to be a mom. Overjoyed, I wanted to tell my family in person, so I thought our regular Sunday family dinner at our parents' house would be perfect. Well, as it turns out, Emma had a similar idea. She planned to announce her wedding venue and date at the same dinner without telling anyone. The dinner started, and everyone was in good spirits. Before I could share my news, Emma stood up, clinking her glass for attention, and beamed as she revealed her wedding plans. Our family burst into excited chatter, and in that moment, I felt like my news could wait until later in the evening, or even another day. But then, my mom, who was one of the few who knew about the adoption, gave me a knowing look and mouthed, "Now's the perfect time." Caught up in the emotion and encouraged by my mom's enthusiasm, I stood up and announced, "And I have some news too. I'm going to be a mom. The adoption is final." The room erupted. Half the family rushed towards me, showering me with congratulations. But when I looked at Emma, her face had fallen. She excused herself from the table and didn't return for the rest of the evening. After the dinner, my parents and several relatives said that while they were happy for me, I should have waited and not stolen Emma's thunder. Emma texted me saying I was a jerk for upstaging her on purpose and that I could have chosen any other day to announce my news. My intention wasn't to overshadow her announcement, and now I feel torn up about it. Emma and I haven't spoken since, and the family is divided on whether I was insensitive or if it was just an unfortunate coincidence. So Reddit, am I the jerk for sharing my adoption news on the same night as my sister's wedding venue announcement? Not the jerk. First off, congratulations on your adoption going through. That's amazing news. Good grief though. Your sister is an adult, right? Venue reveal? Seriously? The only response to someone telling you the venue for a wedding is, "Oh, that sounds nice." It's not something to celebrate or go huffy over if someone else has even better news. It's barely even news. And your parents are being as ridiculous as your sister. She's not a kid, although throwing a temper tantrum over this does make you wonder, and indulging her over this makes them as silly as she is. Wedding culture has been an out-of-control monster for a long time, with the most idiotic behavior being excused because she's a bride. But I think your sister has managed to find a new low, and your family are utter clowns for indulging her in this nonsense. My wife won't let me play video games for 30 minutes a day. So I, 37 male, work as a service manager for a high-volume dealer, and I'm out of the house for 12 hours a day. I leave at 6 a.m. and I don't get home until 6 p.m. for 5 days a week. My wife, who's 33, gets upset when I get home, and after eating dinner, I want to get a couple of rounds of Call of Duty in. My wife is a stay-at-home mom with our 18-month-old and thinks it's absolutely criminal that I want to get some decompression time at the end of the day. My daughter is still in the mommy all the time phase, so she prefers to spend more time with my wife than I. Usually when I get home, I will eat dinner, do whatever honey-do's she has for me, and then play for a little. After I'm done, I will join them and spend my time with family, which usually is her watching a movie or show, and I read the same book to my daughter 10 times. My wife says that even when I'm chilling with them, I spend too much time on my phone. While we are all hanging out, if my daughter is asking for my attention, I will stop what I'm doing and do whatever she's asking me to do. Whenever she wants to go back to mommy, I will browse Twitter or Reddit, since I usually have absolutely zero interest in what she's watching. She accuses me of being absent and not present, since I don't focus all of my free time on her and the baby. Also, side note, she's currently 20 weeks pregnant. So, am I the jerk? Edit. I get up at 5 a.m. and usually fall asleep at 9:30 to 10 p.m. My wife and daughter nap through the day, so when I'm sleeping, they're usually awake for another hour or two. Second edit. It has been confirmed that I am indeed the jerk. Thanks for all the constructive suggestions, y'all. Time to work on adjusting my mindset. Third edit. Although I do see how I can improve, it does seem like some more background is needed on my home and work situation. I literally took this job and all that came with it because my wife decided she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. The original plan was for her to go back to work after our daughter was born, but during her maternity leave, she decided she would rather stay home until our baby was school-aged. During that time, she also decided she wanted another baby. I've done everything to try to accommodate her wishes. I took the job, dropped my jujitsu and gym time since I don't have time to go anymore, and really only have the one hobby now that I can do from home. My wife and I's childhoods were similar, raised by single mothers in a low-income neighborhood in LA. Now we have a nice home in a very nice part of a beautiful city. I've struggled and grinded on my own since I was 17, and I'm awfully proud of the life I've managed to build. My wife has always hated gaming, even before the babies, but it's always been a hobby of mine since I was a kid. I didn't have a whole lot growing up, but I had a Nintendo, and instead of messing around on the streets, I would come home and play that to stay out of trouble. The people on this subreddit are absolutely merciless. I've even received messages on how I'm disgusting or I'm a piece of trash and I should go to heck. That's insane. My wife picks our 2 family destination vacations every year, and on weekends, we're either spending time visiting her family or going camping. Can I be more attentive? Definitely. Is our marriage and life in absolute shambles? Definitely not. I will always be willing to learn and evolve as a person. I've wanted to be a father since I can remember, and will always try to be the best one I can, but I'm still human and still flawed. You're the jerk. You may work 12 hours a day, but you're a dad 24 hours a day. You have 4 competing interests: your family, your job, sleep, and your personal time. Right now, you're giving half of your time to your job. Then you have to divide the remainder of time between sleep, family, and yourself. You can't really take much time from sleep. I'll assume you sleep about 6 hours. Now you have 4 hours for yourself and your family. Take an hour for yourself, 3 hours for your family. Is that enough time? Are you happy being a father and husband for only 3 hours a day? Compare that with your wife. She's a stay-at-home mom 24 hours a day. She's always on call. She constantly has a kid attached to her. Even when your daughter's asleep, your wife can't get too into something because your daughter could wake up at any time. Honestly, your household sounds very stressed. You're stretching yourself thin. Your wife has no reprieves. It's easy for me to say, you need a lot less demanding job, especially if you want more you time. The 12-hour workday and stay-at-home mom isn't making either of you happy. Your wife is telling you that she needs adult attention after spending all day with a baby. When you're there, you're constantly doing everything you can to engage in escapism. She's telling you, but you aren't listening. The day will come when she doesn't complain to you at all, and it will be because she has already left you in her mind. The only thing left will be the packing. Once it gets to that point, there will be no fixing it. You're the jerk. In these cases, I always suggest the following. Take 5 days vacation time. Let your wife go visit a family member or head to a spa. Then for 5 days, take all the responsibility for your kid. Walking, dressing, cooking, feeding, cleaning up the kitchen, playtime, nap time, cooking lunch, feeding, cleaning up, playtime, nap time, preparing dinner for spouse and your kid, setting the table, feeding, cleaning up, everything. See if you can find some time to do the grocery shopping, laundry, and general cleaning as well. Then get back to us. You're the jerk. Play video games after the baby goes to bed. Your wife needs a break, and I say that as a stay-at-home dad. The reason the baby is fixated on mom is because you aren't spending enough time bonding with it. I get that work is long and hard, but parenting takes priority. Or just like, don't play video games every day. I'm sure parents also can't watch their favorite movies or shows or do other hobbies every day. Why are video games always the thing that gets posted here? Dude has a kid and another one on the way and is on Reddit whining about Call of Duty. This is why I wouldn't date a gamer. I'm sure they aren't all the same, but guys like this seem too common. The escapism associated with gaming is so intense. Not the jerk. I say this as a stay-at-home mom of a 6 and a 2-year-old. My husband works 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, and has done so for years. As a good wife and mother, once he's home, I just want him to relax from his long day. I don't need a break from my kids. Parenting is not a job the way people try to make it out to be. It's a choice and a lifelong commitment. If you're lucky enough to have a man who's willing to work long hours to provide for his family, you need to treat him right or another woman will. I make sure to have dinner ready when hubby gets home and that the house is nice and clean. People really exaggerate how hard it is to be a stay-at-home mom, and I'm honestly so glad I'm not a man. If I was expected to work long hours, then come home and take over for mom because she needs a break from her kids, I don't think I would have even wanted to have a family. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. How dare someone want 30 minutes to themselves after working for 12 hours a day? Don't you just love Reddit? Ticking off the base commander. When I was 20, I got drafted into the Army. I live in the Netherlands, and this happened in the 80s. I got trained to be an ambulance driver. 2 months of general training and how to drive a Land Rover, and 2 months of medical training. After that, I was ready to take on any medical emergency that came my way. After my training, I got placed in a staff support platoon, a mismatch of different roles that are there to support the higher Army staff in whatever they need. Make coffee, admin, drive them around, tech support, etc. I was their ambulance driver. It was probably helpful when we were at war, but they had no use for me during peacetime. After I got settled on the base where I was stationed, I was called in by my lieutenant, telling me I had been volunteered to work at the small local military post on our base. I was okay with it as it gave me something to do during the time I had to serve in the Army. It was a small post with a clinic, 1 permanent doctor, and 1 drafted out of medical school, and several other grunts like me. Downstairs was our clinic and a few rooms to treat patients. Upstairs, about 12 beds for patients who were sick, but not bad enough that they had to go to a real hospital. We worked at the clinic and took care of the patients upstairs, and maybe 2 to 3 times a week, I had to pull out with the ambulance we used. More often than not, for a planned trip to transport a patient to or from an actual hospital. I started with the rank of soldier, and I was expected to end my 1-year career at the rank of corporal. As you can imagine from the title, that never happened. I did not hate working at the post. On the contrary, I actually felt like I did something useful. And while I was stationed at the post, I learned many practical medical skills, having other soldiers to practice on. but it was a waste of my time. I wanted to start my career in IT, and this was holding me back. I also did not care much about hierarchy or ranks. I respected my fellow army men and women for what they were, their actions, and how they treated others, not by the number of bars, stars, or stripes. And being an actual medic on our base, I got away with that. We had no roll calls, and I slept in a 2-person bedroom instead of the 12-person one my platoon mates had to use. No inspections, no military training, and wearing white instead of green. Anyways, on to the malicious compliance. I was tending to a patient at the clinic. He and his buddy had walked into a door, their words, and it had a glass window that shattered and cut them both up. One was pretty bad, and he was treated by our doctor in one of the rooms as he needed quite a few stitches. I had to stay in the clinic. And as the other soldier only had minor cuts, I treated him on the spot as no other medical staff was available at that time. The slightly larger cuts I glued shut. For others, a band-aid would suffice. He was sitting in one of the chairs, and I was on one knee in front of him, taking care of a cut on his leg as I heard somebody walk into the clinic. Without looking up, as I was holding a glued cut together with my fingers until it had set, I politely asked to please have a seat and that I would be right there. Colonel, do you know who I am? I am the base commander, Colonel so-and-so. Yes, he actually said that. I can still hear it in my head 35 years later. His booming, indignant voice, full of air and how important he was. I was not impressed at all, mostly annoyed by his attitude, and told him, "Congratulations. Please have a seat, and I'll get to you once I finish treating the cut that I'm working on." That was not what he wanted to hear, and he started chewing me out. Finally, I was done with the cut, let go of my fingers, and got up. Ignoring his barrage, I asked him how I could help. "Colonel, I need to speak to the doctor. I have an appointment." "Okay, not an emergency." I explained to the colonel that the doctor was treating a patient who needed urgent medical attention and that he will have to wait until the doctor finishes his treatment. He has none of it and tells me how he does not have the time to wait. Then he orders me to tell the doctor that his 3 p.m. appointment is waiting for him. I knew the doctor would drop everything and come running to the colonel if he got wind of who it was that was waiting for him. He did not have much of a spine, and his career was primarily based on the colonel's input and assessment of him. But the colonel had given me an order, and I had to do it. So I went to the treatment room and put my head in. The doctor was busy stitching up the more injured soldier, and I complied with the colonel's order. Me: "Doctor, your 3 p.m. appointment has arrived." The doctor, not realizing or remembering who the 3 p.m. appointment was, told me irritably to have the patient wait until he's finished, and that it could be another 5 to 10 minutes. He repeated what he had told me several times before, to only disturb him for emergencies. I go back to the colonel and tell him that the doctor's still busy treating the other patient and would be available in about 10 minutes. The colonel was not happy to hear that and told me to go get the doctor now. I told the colonel I had explicit instructions to only disturb the doctor in case of an emergency and that his appointment was not an emergency. He would have to wait. He grumbled a bit, but in the end sat down until the doctor arrived, and he started berating the doctor about how precious his time was and how he had made him wait. The doctor apologized and almost groveled as they moved into the doctor's office. I had to go upstairs for something, and the colonel had already left after I got down. I did get a good ear washing from the doctor, telling me I should have mentioned to him that it was the colonel who was waiting for him. I argued that it should not matter who was waiting if he was treating a patient who was bleeding all over the place, and that he told me himself that he could only be disturbed for emergencies. I never got that promotion to corporal or even soldier first class. Still worth it. Am I the jerk for telling my daughter that if she wants to move back in with me, she has to obey my rules? I'll keep the background short. I divorced my ex-husband when my daughter, Maria, was 10. I got the house, but I was a stay-at-home mom, so I had trouble making ends meet. So lots of budgeting after I got a job in my field again. My ex didn't have this problem, and he could spoil her. He spoiled her rotten, and it really affected our relationship. I would tell her that I can't afford to get her a $1,000 laptop, and it would cause a huge argument about how dad is better. I tried to get her a job. Argument happened. When she was 17, she decided to drop out from high school. I told her no. She told me it was her life and she can do what she wants. Another argument, and she left to go live with her dad permanently. I tried to contact her multiple times, but she told me I wasn't her mother anymore and to just leave her alone. She's now 21, and her dad has gotten remarried and basically kicked her out. She called me and we met up. She wants to move back in with me, and I told her only under these conditions. 1. She needs to get her GED. 2. She needs to be working a job at least 25 hours a week. 3. She needs to be looking into what her career will be and either go to a trade school or college. 4. She won't need to pay rent but needs to buy her own stuff, like clothes and personal items. 5. She needs to contribute to the shared areas. Chores, she would refuse to do them as a kid. And 6. Finally, no partying lifestyle. She needs to focus on getting her life together, not going out every night like she used to. Save that for the weekend. She called me a crazy jerk and said that I'm a horrible mother. I informed her that she made it clear she has no mother. She stormed out and I'm getting angry texts now. You're the jerk. This poor girl had to go through her parents getting divorced when she was 10. Then she had her mom blaming her for the manipulation of the ex-husband. You gave up on a teenager. 21 is still so young, but my kids could come home at any age. You chose to have a kid, you chose who would be the father of that kid, and you chose how to raise her. Now you have the chance to get her back in your life and away from her dad, the guy who was so bad that you divorced him and who kicked out his own kid. But you'd rather be harsh and compassionless by demanding to control her life instead of being understanding and encouraging. It sounds like you were thrilled to throw "you're not my mother" back at her. She's been through so much at such a young age, and you're supposed to be her mom, not the agent of her karma. You're the jerk. I hope she lands on her feet, and I hope she knows that she was never the problem. You're the jerk. Yes, she's technically an adult at 21. However, she's only in this situation because of her father enabling her choices and you essentially abandoning her. You're holding her actions from when she was a kid over her. She had no guidance growing up, and you bailed when it got hard. You need to help her get there, and it won't be easy for either of you now that she's gotten older. Whatever happened between you and her dad for you to absolutely give up on trying with her is a true shame. You failed her as much as her father failed her. I'm appalled at everyone who's saying this is a reasonable reaction. Yes, some of the rules are reasonable and necessary to establish boundaries, respect, etc. But you need to ease her into this. It's setting her up for failure when she needs support from one of her parents. She's currently being rejected by both of you, and you need to realize you're only contributing to this damage. You're the jerk. Things change a lot in the human brain from 17 to 21. It'll change even more in the next few years. You're her mom and held her to her hormonal teen year words. She was a stupid kid then. Even if she wanted and planned to do the things on your messed up list, just asking her to do so is insulting as heck. Not the jerk. You sound like you have an actual brain. Your daughter is an idiot, just like these people on Reddit. I hope you don't take their advice seriously. Most of these people haven't touched the grass or felt the breeze blowing in their face in the last 10 years. Never take advice from this new generation of weak-minded idiots who are in a never-ending competition of who can be the biggest victims. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know. Funny thing is, all these commenters who think mom is being unreasonable, they're the ones whose parents failed them. OP's just trying to get her daughter on the right track so her kid doesn't end up like these commenters. Whoa, Karen, that's kinda harsh, no? Sometimes truth hurts, Reddit boy. You know we lose subscribers every time you say something like that, right? Yeah, well hopefully we can gain some new ones with above single-digit IQs. Subscribe to the channel if you have above single-digit IQ. Would I be the jerk for not telling my husband I'm pregnant until after he's back from his trip? My husband is a stay-at-home dad to our 4-year-old daughter. He's an extremely devoted and loving dad who has barely spent any time away from her, and she's a major daddy's girl. In 2 weeks, he's going to his best friends from college for a whole week. He's going to be reuniting with his college friends that he hasn't seen or spent time with all together since our own wedding. He originally wanted the 3 of us to go, but I convinced him to just go by himself because I think being alone would make him enjoy it more, so he didn't have to do childcare. I think our daughter's too young for that big of a trip for people she's only met once. And also, I'm planning on taking a week off work and would love to spend one-on-one time with her that we so rarely get. This morning, I learned that I'm pregnant. We've been trying for some time now, and we really want lots of kids. So I'm over the moon, and I know my husband and daughter will be too. I've not told my husband yet. My first pregnancy was a huge prepper, and when I learned I was pregnant, he went into overdrive with preparing, researching, and taking care of me. He was incredibly helpful and loving, and it was so sweet, but he also really worked himself up and got stressed. I don't think it'll be as bad with this one, but I could still see it being a lot. I honestly don't really want to tell him until after his trip in 3 weeks, even though it's a huge secret for me to keep. I know he'll potentially be upset, which with him is very tame, when he finds out I'd known for 3 weeks, but would get over it fast. My concern with telling him is I could honestly see it ruining his trip. I cannot imagine the constant texts asking me questions for the millionth times or sharing his most recent thoughts. I really want him to have a chill and fun trip and be able to decompress. And for myself, I want to be able to just focus on having a great time with my daughter. But I also don't want to just hide something so hugely important to our family from him, since he obviously deserves to know. I can't really decide. Would I be the jerk if I decided to wait to tell him until after his trip? Not the jerk, but definitely don't tell anyone else before him. OP. Oh yeah, definitely not telling anyone else. That's why I'm asking Reddit for advice on this, and not friends or family. Although I may tell my daughter right before he gets home, because I'm loving all of the surprise suggestions I'm seeing, especially with her wearing a big sister shirt. Update. So I hadn't planned to give an update so soon, but even though I'd planned on waiting until after my husband's trip, after a few days, it became clear to me I could not wait that long. He definitely knew something was up with me. I've been getting crazy excited and had been chomping at the bit to tell him. And honestly, it just didn't feel good to keep something that big from him for so long. We've been trying for this baby for close to a year now, and it's such happy news, and I decided it's just not worth it. But I still wanted to give him the surprise I had planned. I asked him to go out to the store to grab something really quick, and before he got home, I had my daughter put on the shirt I'd gotten her that had "Only Child" crossed out with "Big Sister" written underneath. When he came through the front door, she sprinted to him, yelling about how her shirt had a secret message for him. He was very taken aback, and it took him a second, but once it clicked, he was beyond excited, as was our very confused daughter once we told her. She started dancing around the house, singing about having a baby sister, which she is adamant it will be, and it was just a really good day. He's still going on his trip and has not even been close to as stressed as he was last time. If anything, he's looking forward to it even more now because he knows it's going to be a last chance to really decompress before things become a whole lot crazier. Thank you to everyone for all the lovely comments and responses that I got. I really appreciated them all. I showed my husband the post and admitted my original plans, and he got a big kick out of it. But he's very glad that I told him before the trip. What? A wholesome story with 2 parents that are still married and a happy kid? No divorce? No cheating? No. Yeah, I feel like we hit a glitch in the Matrix or something. Where did Reddit go and what universe are we in? Don't get too excited, Karen. Here's one to bring you back to reality. Am I the jerk for not telling my boyfriend I own the building we live in? When I was 18, my dad gifted me a house with 2 stories. I'm extremely thankful. We're not upper class, but my dad bought this house for a cheap price a long time ago. It was his grandmother's cousin's house. I know that this was an extreme privilege, and I'm forever grateful for this. The layout of this building is like an apartment, but it's a house. So basically, each story has its own separate entry, its own kitchen and bathroom. I live upstairs while I rent out the downstairs. My boyfriend, 25, male, moved in with me about 3 months ago, and we've been together for 6 months. I've not asked him for money, neither for utilities or to pay me any rent. The only thing he contributes to is groceries, that we split 50-50. I've not brought up that I own the building, as it's not something I tell many people. If people ask me, I of course tell them that I own it. But if they just assume that I'm a renter, then they can believe that. The topic of a landlord, the renter downstairs, or the owner of the building has not been something we've talked about. This last Tuesday, the renter came up to tell me that her freezer had stopped working. I answered the door, and my boyfriend heard us talking, I suppose. I went downstairs to take a look, and we came to the conclusion that she would buy a new one, send me the receipt, and I would give her the money. She was very grateful for this solution. When I went upstairs, my boyfriend asked if it could be fixed. I told him no, but she was going to buy a new one and I would pay for it. He looked at me like I was crazy and asked me why would I pay for her freezer. I told him that because I am her landlord, the freezer was there when she started renting. I would stand for the cost. He just asked me if I was serious, to which I said I was. He began screaming at me, asking why the heck I would hold this information from him and that I was an evil person. I said I was sorry for not telling him, but I did not think that it would matter. He said he could not believe he was together with someone who is a landlord, that all of us just use people for money, and that the only thing we people care about is money, and would rather have people be homeless than offering affordable rent. The downstairs is 1 kitchen, 1 bath, and 4 other rooms. I charge $500 in rent. I understand many people have had trouble with landlords, but I try my best to be a good one. He demanded that I give him 50% of the money I make from rent, or else I would be just as bad as he thought I was. Was I really the jerk for not telling him? He has not talked to me since Tuesday, and I've tried telling him that I'm truly sorry, but he doesn't answer me at all. Not the jerk. He showed his true colors at, give me half the money or you're just as bad as any other landlord. If he actually thought you renting out the lower half of the building was morally reprehensible, the ultimatum would be stop charging the person downstairs rent or offer to sell the downstairs unit to them, or even donate the profit to charities that help people secure stable housing. But no, he only actually cares that he didn't know about this stream of income and now he wants in. Not the jerk. Dump him. I know that's a common response on this subreddit, but this dude was happy to exploit you for free lodging, and now that he finds out you've got income he wasn't aware of, he wants half of it just because, or else you're a big meanie? You do not owe him an apology, you owe him a kick in the rear. OP. He sees it as both a way of me proving that I'm not renting as a way to grab money from people, so that money is not what I care about, I should have no trouble giving him half, but also as a way to prove to him that I'm sorry for not telling him earlier that I own the building. Let me get this straight. He must not have offered to pay half of the rent because then it would have come up and you would have told him, right? He's living with you rent-free. Up to now, he thought you were paying the entire rent. On what planet does he deserve half of the tenant's rent money? Please reconsider this relationship, not the jerk. OP. No, he did not offer to pay any of the rent. If he offered, I would have explained to him that I own the building. In hindsight, I should have told him that it was my building that he would be living in with me, even if he didn't ask. I think that outburst really showed me how he was. I thought about breaking up with him, but also thought I was maybe overthinking it. If it comes to that, at least I learned something for future relationships. You're the jerk. Landlords are always the jerk, no matter what the circumstances. Humans are people, and people do not exist for you to profit off of. There is never an excuse to be greedy and use people to make money. Plus, with the housing crisis the way it is, people like you who hoard housing just because you're rich, it makes me sick. You're no better than the millionaires who own Walmart and Amazon, exploiting people for profit. This is why I joined the anti-work movement 8 years ago, and I've never looked back. With the taxes that the rich pay, there are resources for all of us to not have to work and still receive monthly payments to live comfortably on. They make it complicated to try to keep you from doing it, but trust me, it's all worth it once you have that monthly check and you never have to work again. Oh, you're mad that I get to draw all day and watch my favorite shows while you slave away? Then join the movement and stick it to these millionaires. Or be a fool and keep slaving away at jobs you hate for literally a few dollars an hour. I make twice my state's minimum wage and I never even have to leave my apartment. Edit. To those of you who are mad that I'm winning in life, keep your opinions to yourself, but have fun at work. I'll be watching Adventure Time. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her boyfriend? Please let us know. Am I wrong? I'm not comfortable with my husband being friends with this female coworker. Coworker, female 24, we'll call her Debbie, started working with my husband, male 35. We'll call him Charlie, 2 years ago. Last September, I met her for the first time at a wedding of 2 of their coworkers. She sat behind us. The girl getting married does not like my husband, but he's on the same shift, and the whole shift was invited to the wedding. The girl getting married had called Charlie a snake to Debbie in casual conversation. They're not friends, and Charlie is generally a good person in my opinion, so that's not a red flag to me. Debbie told Charlie about this. At this point, it's a running inside joke that I was privy to. Back to the wedding. Charlie texts Debbie, snake, and Debbie mouths, stop, all flirty. I did think it was flirty, but thought that maybe it was just her personality. Fast forward to the shift Christmas party last year. We've been hosting shift Christmas parties at our house for 2 years. The whole shift was there, but Debbie brings her twin sister as her +1. One thing about their job is it's a male-dominated field, but I'm friends with a few of his coworkers' wives. So during the party, all the women were hanging out, except Debbie and her twin sister. She was hanging out with the guys. I just assumed it was because she didn't really know most of the women. No big deal. But the next day, she sends Charlie a couple of photos that she had snapped of him without his knowledge. The photos were accompanied by the text, "Why did I take these? Lol." He showed me this and his response, which was pretty PG, but I did remark something along the lines of, "I think she has a crush on you." He brushed it off. Fast forward to February. His coworkers are all in their 20s, and they convinced Charlie to get a Snapchat. I've never been a fan of Snapchat, and Charlie has never had any form of social media except Reddit. After he gets Snapchat, I noticed he's on his phone a lot more. I'm naturally a nosy person, and I realize this is a flaw of mine. So I notice that he's beginning to talk about Debbie more, and I start questioning on who he's chatting with. One thing I notice is that every single time he works overtime, she snaps him and asks him if he's working, or she'll ask if he worked it the next day. I tell him she's starting to make me uncomfortable. He brushes it off. March, we go to a new coworker's house on a Wednesday night for a dinner party. None of the wives that I'm friends with are there. I also have to work on Thursday, and no one else does. Before we go to the party, we discuss leaving at a reasonable time. At 9:45 p.m., I ask him what time we're leaving. He hems and haws around, and I admittedly get frustrated and walk off. He gets mad and decides that he's staying as late as he wants to. I keep asking when we're leaving and reminding him that I have to work. I spend the rest of the night crying on the couch in a stranger's house. 4 people come to check on me. Charlie and Debbie never do, and I can see them sitting beside each other outside. Edit. We end up leaving the party at around 1:30 a.m. May. We go to a hot air balloon festival an hour from our home. He sees on our Snapchat story that Debbie is about 30 minutes away. He tells her where we are and asks her to meet up. I'm not really privy to this conversation, except that I asked him who he was talking to, and it was her. We get in an argument and leave before she arrives, and then he tells me that's what they were talking about. June. We go to London for vacation, and we're arriving back in the States on our anniversary. I post a super cute slideshow. Debbie sees it. Debbie then snaps Charlie about someone breaking into her car. I express that I think it's weird. August. Charlie says that he stopped talking to Debbie because it made me upset. He has been distancing from me for a few months though, so I still have a gut feeling that something's not right. He got a new phone in July, but saved his old phone. I let my intrusive thoughts win, and I look through his old phone. Charlie and Debbie talked on the phone for 45 minutes while I was at work, and they were both off work. I log into Charlie's TikTok account. He sent her a video from Barstool Sports of a girl telling a guy, "I have a crush on you," and the guy reacting really good to it. 2 days before he sent that video, Debbie reposts one that says, "When you are trying to go to sleep, but all you can think about is wanting him in your bed." 2 days after he sent her the crush video, she reposts a video that says, "The most confusing place you can be is knowing you have a connection with someone, but you're not officially together, but you're more than friends." I confront him and tell him that this is an inappropriate relationship. After I confront him, she deletes her videos. He claims he didn't talk to her about it and still maintains that they stopped talking. Last week, I decided to check his Snapchat on his old phone because I'm still having a gut feeling. They've been #1 BFFs on Snapchat for at least 2 weeks. They talk every single day. She sends him a pic of herself in her pajamas. "Now I'm in my PJs, lol," while I'm looking. It wasn't risque, but I have never once sent any of my male friends a selfie of myself, much less in my pajamas. I tell him I'm not comfortable with their friendship and I would like him to stop being friends with her. Side note, we are in couples therapy as well. During a fight, he tells me that he likes having friends. I have no problem with any of his other friends. I ask him why he lied and said he stopped talking to her. He said because he knew I didn't like it. I feel like I can no longer trust him, and he basically told me that he would rather be friends with her than married to me. I've asked all of my friends if I'm overreacting, and all of them have told me to leave him. We've been married 13 years and together for a total of 15 years. So Reddit, am I overreacting? What does your therapist say? Therapist doesn't understand why he won't just stop talking to her, but also doesn't believe that it will be enough for me. Is he attractive? I mean, personally, I think he's attractive. Update. So I gave him an ultimatum, do not recommend, and he has a lawyer friend. He went to see his friend 2 days later. He decided it wasn't for him. Our therapist convinced him to block the coworker. We were working on the marriage. I honestly think we were making progress. We were starting to be able to talk about issues without them getting super heated. He was actually opening up in therapy. And then he was triggered by his avoidant detachment style. He went to Debbie's birthday dinner and I didn't. He stayed at his parents' house and came home the next day. I got a Snapchat request from a new female friend and noticed on my list that Debbie had a top friend in common with me. I don't really use Snapchat except to send videos to a female friend that has an iPhone while I have an Android. So I have 2 best friends on Snapchat, Carrie and Charlie. Debbie has the sunglasses emoji next to her name on my list. It can only mean that Charlie added her back. I asked him to pack a bag and leave. I'm calling a lawyer ASAP Monday. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Dang, OP, that really sucks, but I'm glad you stood up for yourself. What was the reason he decided to go to the party? Also, why did he stay at his parents'? That's really suspicious. How did he react when you asked him to leave? OP. He had told me about the party Wednesday and we had planned to go together. Friday morning, we had a counseling appointment and the therapist basically told him he needed to start feeling his feelings instead of bottling them in. This triggered his avoidant attachment style. He seemed down all day and I told him I wasn't going to the party. He told me that he wasn't going to change right before he left and I told him we couldn't work without changes. That's why he stayed at his parents'. He came back Saturday and I asked him to leave Saturday night. BS, he stayed with his parents. OP should call the in-laws to make sure he's lying. Might be good evidence for the divorce. It's sad what's happened to OP, but at the same time, divorce is really the best option because OP's husband is unreliable and definitely has the hots for Debbie. Won't be surprised if the husband and Debbie had an affair this entire time. If my husband told me he'd rather be friends with another woman than be married to me, I would be done. He's 35 and she's 24. They may get together for a while, but then she'll move on to wreck someone else's marriage. Am I the jerk for asking my husband to stay away an extra day when he travels? My husband travels for both work and pleasure every 2 to 3 months and 3 to 7 days at a time. He gets restless without it, so I never have a problem with it. The only thing is for the day or so he comes back, he is not helpful and wants to lounge around, sleep in, and be gruff. We have a 6-year-old who has some special needs, and I hate thinking I have extra hands to help or an adult to talk to, only to have another kid to take care of. After the day, he perks back up and things are okay again. After the last time, I asked him to stay away for another day. I told him I'd pay for a hotel or he could crash with a friend. He got really upset and said he likes to crash in his bed and that he was hurt I didn't want him just because he wasn't useful. I told him that it's just really hard to have him around when he's not himself. My mom agrees with me, but my dad said he'd be hurt by the sentiment. Our friends are split, with most saying they get it, but I presented it coldly. Am I the jerk for not wanting to deal with him when he first gets back? ETA. The part that makes it hard is our daughter tries to get in his face and interact with him, and he just wants to rest. I have to take her away and calm her down and try and get her happy again. They usually have a tight bond, and she's used to getting his attention, so it's just hard on both of us that he wants to laze for a day. I've also suggested he come back on a work day and take the day off so he can relax. He's great when he's himself, but he gets exhausted traveling. Also, for those asking, I think there's a huge difference on the work trips and the personal trips. When work exhausts him, I get it. When he's been traveling with his friends, I do expect him to come back and chip in, or just not make things harder. I think the hard part is really that this is an area we struggle to communicate on. I think in my head, the compromise has always been, I don't mind if you travel a lot, but when you're here, I need you on because single parenting is hard. Like so many on this thread, I think we just need to communicate better. He gets restless with what? He travels for pleasure while you stay home to take care of your kid? That already just sounds off. Is he cheating? Does he have another family you don't know about? Heck, I'd tell him not to come back at all. OP. He travels with a bunch of his friends that have been doing it for years. None of the rest have kids, and I think that's sometimes part of the bigger problem. I think sometimes he forgets that it's tough to juggle the single-parent aspect of it, so I think I felt like compromises in my head would just make it easier for me. We need to communicate better on this. Not the jerk, and I can't believe how many people are making excuses for him. Consistently coming home, but basically ignoring his kid because he needs time to relax for an entire day after being gone is unacceptable. He's actually being a burden by upsetting your daughter, not just not being useful. He's making life harder for you. Why not use the money you'd spend on extending his stay to pay for a babysitter and a house cleaner and ordering in food so you can both have a do-nothing day? Is that possible? Am I the jerk for calling my sister-in-law pathetic during a family dinner? My fiancé, Chris, 24 male, is the youngest in his family with 2 older siblings, a brother who's 31 and a sister who's 29. I, also 24 male, have one sister who is 9 years younger than me. I don't put much stock into the whole your birth order determines your entire personality thing, but I do think it might enhance traits we already have. I've always naturally been a pretty quiet, even-tempered, nurturing kind of guy. I think I would still be all of those things regardless. Having a little sister when I did just amplified them. Meanwhile, Chris was very much the baby of his family. He wasn't spoiled, just taken care of in the same way my sister is. I've known Chris's family since we were 16. I've never personally had any problems with them, but I did witness a few fights between him and his sister over the years. The fights were always about Chris being a golden child and either getting more privileges or attention than she did, or getting similar privileges earlier in life. I stayed out of it as this was between the two of them. I didn't see the point in stepping into family dynamics like that, especially since I would have been a minor at the time arguing with a woman in her 20s. This past Thursday night, we left on a weekend trip with his family. We left pretty late Thursday. We had already been driving for a few hours, and Chris gets hot and uncomfortable pretty easily, so he wasn't feeling too great. His dad went through a drive-thru, and as we were sitting in the parking lot eating, I asked if there was anything I could do to make him more comfortable. He had forgotten to unbuckle his own seatbelt, so I did it for him and just told him to relax and enjoy his food. His sister made some sort of comment about him getting coddled, but I took it as a joke and brushed past it. Fast forward to last night. While we were out at dinner, it was uncharacteristically warm in the little restaurant we chose. Chris had worn a hoodie with nothing underneath while I was wearing a t-shirt, so we went into the bathroom to switch. It wasn't a big deal until when we sat back down, his sister said, "Looks like you're still getting the golden boy treatment, huh?" I'm usually not a confrontational person, but I was annoyed enough by the multiple comments. I said, "It's a little pathetic that you're almost 30 and you're still rehashing the same argument you had when Chris and I were 16 years old." She ended up going to wait in the car while we finished our meal. It's been tense since then, and while no one has brought it up, I'm not sure if I overstepped. Am I the jerk? Edit. The two examples I gave are not regular occurrences. As I said in a comment, to me, these are just instances of me being considerate of my significant other. Acts of service is big for me when it comes to expressing my love. He does the same for me, as we all should for our partners. If Chris gets hot, why isn't he wearing layers? You obviously love him, but from an outside perspective, he does seem a bit coddled from the two examples you gave. Everyone sucks here. You for calling her out publicly, her for making the comment. Even if you doted on your fiancé, why does his jealous sister have to make negative comments? I would have said something, not the jerk. I've seen the comments where you say these are not normal occurrences, but it really comes across like Chris is so used to being looked after, it's become instinctual to both of you. If he gets hot and bothered so easily, he would be the first to unbuckle his seatbelt so as to be comfortable, and he certainly wouldn't wear a hoodie with nothing underneath it. Look, if you're happy to look after him and he likes being looked after, great. But it doesn't mean sister isn't right. I'm curious, did she comment in a bitter way, or it's normal teasing between siblings? Everyone sucks here if it's the former, you're the jerk if the latter. Our surrogate changed her mind and is now demanding to keep our baby. I, 33 male, find myself in a difficult situation with my surrogate, Maria, 25 female, and I'm wondering if I'm the jerk in this situation. To provide some context, my husband, Roman, 37 male, and I decided to use a surrogacy to have a kid. We had a legal agreement in place, and Maria was compensated generously for her part in carrying our baby. Everything was going smoothly, and we were excited for our baby's arrival. However, around the 8th month of pregnancy, Maria dropped a bombshell. She declared that she no longer wanted to go through with the surrogacy and expressed her desire to keep the baby. This sent Roman into a fit of anger, but I managed to get him to step out, and I had a one-on-one conversation with Maria. I reminded her that she had legally signed the documents, and the baby was unequivocally ours, mine and Roman's. She began pleading with me, but I stood my ground, asserting that this baby was my son and not hers. She tried to bargain, saying she no longer wanted the money, but I firmly rejected her request, emphasizing that no one had coerced her into signing those papers. Whether she liked it or not, the baby was ours. To add some financial weight to my argument, I pointed out all the money we had invested in the baby and the substantial amount she received before the pregnancy. I made it clear that if she wanted the baby, she'd have to reimburse us for all of that, something I knew she couldn't afford. I suggested that if she had any more issues, she should speak to my lawyers, but as far as I was concerned, the baby was ours, mine and Roman's, whether she liked it or not. Maria called us cruel and even got her family involved to support her case. Now I'm doubting whether I'm in the wrong here. Roman supports my stance, but some of my friends and her family are calling me the jerk. So Reddit, am I the jerk in this situation? Edit. For clarification, she hasn't pursued legal action at all. This was a talk that we had with her. Edit 2. We live in California, where traditional surrogacy is allowed, as well as pre-birth and after-birth agreements. We have a pre-birth agreement, and by law, the baby is ours, and she knows it. She's asking if we would give up our rights for her to have the baby, which we won't. The baby is mine and my husband's. There hasn't been pursuit of legal action. She can now only talk through my lawyers. Unfortunately, this is why doctors will not allow the egg donor and the surrogate to be the same person. Who advised you to proceed in this manner? Due to her being the biological mother, your contact is potentially void. I would consider consulting with a family law attorney so your husband can plan to file for custody. If in the future you decide to have more kids, go with a surrogacy agent and separate egg donor so you can avoid this issue. OP is a man and says in the comments the surrogate is also the egg donor, i.e. the surrogate is the biological mother. OP has no biological relationship to the baby. His husband's seed was used with the surrogate's egg. People can downvote me all you want. The facts remain. Traditional surrogacy is much more legally complex than gestational surrogacy because the surrogate is the biological mother of the kid. In order for both intended parents to have parental rights for the kid, the non-biological intended parent will likely need to complete a step-parent adoption following the baby's birth. Am I the jerk for not giving my son the same opportunity due to his choices? My wife regularly uses Reddit and recommended that I post here because our family is split on who's in the wrong. I, 56 male, have 4 kids together with my wife, who's 54 female. We have 3 daughters, Chloe, who's 32, Wendella, who's 30, and Emily, who's 24. We also have 1 son, Lucas, who's 26. My wife and I have, since our kids were born, put in monthly payments into a college fund for them. The amount in the funds was enough to cover for all 4 kids' college education. Our kids all chose different paths in life, whether it was their degree, place of education, or what type of school. They all went with something different. When our oldest, Chloe, graduated high school, she talked to us about how she was unsure what she wanted to do with her life and had been thinking about taking a gap year. We talked with her and told her it was her choice, that if that was what she wanted, she could do it and not rush into education. She did take 2 years. During these years, she worked, and in agreement with me and my wife, she paid us $250 in rent each month to continue living with us. She still ate our food, we cooked for her, and still bought her necessities. The $250 were put in a savings account that we gave her access to when she and her now husband were beginning to talk about buying a home. Even though the situation was not the same with each kid, they all knew about this and the plan for how the money would be used. Wendella lived with us for 3 years after college. Emily lived with us during college. They both took part in this. The issue is with our son. He, like his oldest sister, wanted to take a gap year. We encouraged him to do so. He asked if he could stay with us. We told him yes, but told him about the rent situation. He was not happy with this, saying that he was our son and we should want him to live with us for how long he would need to. We explained what the money would be used for. He said he did not give a hoot. He was very angry with us for a long time and ended up staying with a friend of his. This all happened around 8 years ago. We have a good relationship now with both him and his wife, whom are expecting our first grandbaby. He recently brought up how all his sisters got money to buy a house, showed me pics of a house that he and his wife had been looking at. I said it looked nice, to which he responded with asking when I could give him the money. I told him that he made a choice when he was 18 and that he would not receive any money. He said that it was unfair and that he was young and dumb and should not be punished for it. I told him that I did not have that kind of money to just give him. He left the house after arguing a bit more. My wife and his sisters are all on my side. However, his wife and my mom have said that I'm in the wrong and I should want my grandbaby to have a place to live and should not punish him for mistakes that he made when he was younger. Am I the jerk for not giving him the money? Edit. When each kid got access to the rent money, it was in a savings account. However, before it was put in a fund so the money grew. Explained it really bad. Sorry. Many people have asked about this, so I'll add it here. He did go to college. I was at his graduation, and he uses his degree today. What the 4 of them choose to do with their college fund was up to them. But from my understanding, they all used it for college. If they did not, then they did not. I have never asked any of them for proof of what the money was used for. So that's why I can't say with 100% certainty that it did go towards their college. Third edit. I'm very grateful for all of the advice. I will sit down with my wife and ask her how we should go in about this. Not the jerk. You can't give what you don't have. These are 2 different situations. Out of curiosity, did he ever go to college and did you pay for some or all of it? OP. He did go to college. From my knowledge, the amount saved in the fund was enough for his whole education plus a bit left over. You did not give your daughters money when they purchased homes. You gave them money your daughters had paid you and you saved for them. You did not pay any of your own money towards their homes. Your son was angry that you were going to charge him rent, so he left. He never paid you a cent in rent, so you did not have money to save for him to use for the future. You did pay for his college. Not the jerk. Not the jerk at all. From what I understand, you never gave the other kids money. You just kind of held on to their own money and gave it back to them. Dude should have taken your offer. If you're looking to adopt any more adults, I can 100% do that rental agreement with you. Not the jerk. He was legally an adult when he made his choices at 18. He was mad at paying rent to you, knowing full well that the rent money would be put aside for him to use later. He split. His actions have consequences, and instead of being mad at you, he should be mad at himself. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his son? Please let us know. My wife cheated on me, and I don't know what to do. I'm 30, male. My wife, who's 31, of 5 years, cheated on me last year with her friend when she was out with her friend group. She used to do this often, but always came back around 12 a.m. But this time, she came home very late, at around 5 a.m., very drunk, and I didn't press the issue that night. She was distant and didn't talk much to me afterwards the next few days. I only found out a couple days later when she confessed to cheating after I kept asking her why she was so cold to me. I was shocked. I never liked the fact that she went out to bars and clubs, but she never gave me a reason to distrust her until that night. I immediately grabbed a bag, packed some stuff, and I left. She was begging me to talk about it, but I wasn't in the mood for it. I was angry, upset, sad, and I know that I wasn't in the right headspace for this kind of talk, so I stayed with a friend. Fast forward a few days later, and I agreed to talk to her. She said she was so sorry and would never do it again, and that she would do anything to make me stay. I spent the time I was away thinking of staying or leaving, and I hate the fact that I still love her. We don't have kids together, but part of me still wanted to stay. I gave her certain conditions if she wanted me to stay. The first one is to never see the man that she cheated on me with ever again. The second was that I could see her phone or computer anytime I wanted without having to ask. The last one was that she could no longer go out to bars or clubs without me. She agreed to all of this. Over the last year, she's been estranged from her friend group because she can't go out with them without seeing the man that she cheated on me with, and she hasn't really made any new friends. I haven't checked her phone or computer either. I know she likes to go out, so I try my best to go out with her when I have time. The bar and club scene was never my thing, but I try to enjoy it with her. Things haven't been the same as before, and I've thought about losing the "she can't go out without me" rule, but I keep thinking of what she did. I've explained this to my friend, and she said I should just divorce her if I can't trust her anymore. I thought about it. I wasn't as happy as I used to be. She says she's happy with me around, but she isn't as energetic as she used to be. So, am I the jerk? To clarify some things that were asked, our relationship before seemed pretty good. I was never the club and bar kind of person, but me and my wife enjoyed going out to different places. We were both very outdoorsy. We often went camping, climbing, hiking, among other things. We also liked taking trips around the country and sometimes abroad. We also had date nights once or twice a week. We both work from home, so we often had a good amount of free time. We aren't rich or anything, but we do fine. Also, to clarify something, we don't have kids and we don't want kids. When it came to our love life, I thought it was decent. The only thing we didn't share was her habit of going out to bars and clubs. And now to her friends. Some of you were under the impression I told her to see none of her friends. I only told her to stop seeing the man that she cheated with. At first, I didn't know exactly why she became estranged with the whole group. They were all part of the friend group. I met all of her friends, including the man in question. From what I know about him, he was a player. Nothing happened between him and my wife before, but I never liked the fact she went out so often with this guy, even if it was in a group setting, especially with drinking involved. I did bring this up to her, and she told me there was nothing to worry about, and that this was just insecurity talking. Our relationship now. We've gone out hiking a few times and gone out together on dates, but not nearly as often anymore. I just haven't felt the desire to. Our love life is pretty barren as well. I've talked to my wife, and we both reflected on our relationship. She still claims she wants to stay with me and would respect my conditions no matter what. I asked her what she would do if I let go of the conditions. She told me she's truly ashamed of what happened, and she said she probably wouldn't go to a club or a bar alone anymore. I asked about her old friends, and she told me that she doesn't want to be with their friend group anymore. She told me that they thought she was being unreasonable for not wanting to see the guy anymore, and that's just how he is. Basically, they refused to cut the guy off, and they didn't like that my wife had a problem with him. I never asked her about this before because I didn't care about how my condition was met. All that I cared about was that it was met. I've opened up a bit more, and how our life now is pretty dull. She said she's aware of our relationship not being the same as it was before. I asked her if she wants things to change, but she said she doesn't feel that she has the right to ask me for anything. She said she's aware it's her fault our relationship is like this. I mentioned couples therapy, and she immediately said it was a good idea. I still resent her, but from what I can tell, she does want to make this work. I can't fully trust her yet. I still remember when she first said that there was nothing to worry about. We decided to start couples therapy. I'll be honest though, the only reason I'm willing to do this is because she's followed my conditions for a year, but I don't think this is going to help me trust her ever again. If therapy doesn't work, then I'll leave. Did she ever say why she went home with him? It's good that she regrets it, but what caused her to give in to that desire? What was she feeling or thinking? OP, this is a good question. I haven't asked her. I'll bring this up in therapy when I get the chance. Are any of her friends married or in serious relationships? Their flippant disregard by saying, "That's just how he is," makes it sound like they've taken a turn. Before she cheated, did she ever mention him hooking up with other members of the friend group? Honestly, with their attitude about the whole thing, I wouldn't want her to be around them any more than I would the affair partner. It sounds like she is owning up to it, and she confessed without being caught. I am 100% about cheaters can never be trusted, but she sounds far more serious than I've seen. I am, for once, glad to hear that you're going to try therapy. You deserve happiness, so if you two can work it out and be happy, that's awesome. If therapy helps you see that you'll never be happy together again, then you won't waste any more time. Good luck. OP. As far as I know, only one of the girls besides my wife was in a serious relationship. She mentioned him hitting on all of them in the group and was constantly trying to pick up women at clubs and bars that they went to. Besides that, I don't know much else. I'm not exactly keen on knowing the details of this guy's life. I'm still just not getting why he didn't just divorce her. He said he doesn't feel the same. Their love life is gone. He doesn't feel very strongly about her anymore. Just rip the band-aid off and divorce her. No amount of counseling or therapy will fix what happened. Am I the jerk for sending my nephew home for disrespecting me after everything I've done? My fiance and I have been having a set of our own issues for months. We have 3 kids, who are 9, 5, and 2. Recently, his mom, who helps take care of his nephew, who's 12, has been just dropping him off at our house without calling or getting permission. The last several times I just let it go, but once he stayed for a week straight during fall break. I finally had to send him home because school was starting again. Then I took him Halloween trick-or-treating and found out that they haven't had electricity or water for well over a month, and he told me he had no clothes or food. Without hesitation, I took him to my house and set a plan to take him to school the following week and worked it all around my work schedule because my fiance couldn't. I told the grandmother and let her know that he was fine. I took him shopping and got him all kinds of new clothes. He stayed for over a week, and I noticed he wouldn't get off of our PS5, refused to take showers, and didn't listen to me about much of anything. He also refused going to school for me. He even missed 2 days because he refused. It stressed me out. My fiance was no help, didn't enforce anything, never asked if I needed any help. I had to do it all by myself on top of work and my own kids. I finally hit my breaking point. It was Sunday today, church. I worked until 9 a.m., came straight home to get everyone ready for church at 11. My fiance is of course watching football and acts like he couldn't lift a finger, but okay, I did it. Got everyone in the car, and he has a bad attitude. Go to the gas station where he keeps making slick remarks, and I finally snap back. I'm overwhelmed. I'm dealing with all this, and he's done little to nothing with me. He gets out of the car and starts walking down the highway. I of course pull up to him and tell him to get in the car. His nephew starts trying to get out of the car to walk with him. I tell him no, that's not safe, just please stop. My fiance gets back in and is livid with me and says I've been being a jerk, and his nephew immediately chimed in saying, "Oh yeah, I definitely agree." I cut him off and said basically to stay out of it. My daughter comes to me after we get home and tells me she didn't want him staying at our house anymore because he had told her and my fiance that he never really liked me and I've always been stuck up and he can't stand me. So basically I lost it. Not at them of course, but I called the grandma and said I couldn't do it today or right now. I won't be disrespected like this in my own home, from anyone. But my fiance says I'm a jerk, basically for sending him back home. I just don't know how much more I can take. Not the jerk. Send your fiance back to his mummy as well until he learns to stop being a useless drain on your household. Sorry sis, I'd be dropping the fiance as well. You have a much bigger problem on your hands than a rude nephew, and I expect you know that already. Please prioritize your and your kids' well-being, and don't let anyone interfere with that. Anyone. Not the jerk. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that if she's so upset about my kid not sharing her toys, they could find another place to live? I'm a single mom to Emmy, who's 6. Emmy is my only kid. She's been sick since she was 2, and if I'm going to be honest, she likely won't make it to 10. Her dad left us when she got sick. Emmy spends 1 week in the hospital, then a week at home. Because of this, the last time I was able to send her to school was 2 years ago, when we were able to do preschool 3 hours a day, 2 days a week, and they still wore masks. Now the only time she's around other kids is when she's in the hospital. Emmy hates sharing her toys, so I try not to make her do it. Usually when we see her cousins, I'll buy something like a big pack of chalk and a gallon of bubbles, and I'll tell her it's for everyone, but that's the only time she'll share. My sister and her 2 daughters, 5 and 7, are living with us temporarily. It's been difficult for everyone. At first, I switched rooms with Emmy, and we put all 3 girls in the master, but Emmy hated sharing rooms and said the other girls were always touching her stuff, so we switched back, and I put the girls in the spare room with their mom. My sister was complaining that the room was too crowded, so she's staying on a cot in my office, but apparently that's also uncomfortable, so she wants the girls to share again. My sister does not pay any rent. Her husband sends $500 a month to help pay for their groceries, and she helps with Emmy while I'm working. My job is pretty flexible, so I'm able to watch her while I work. They've also been complaining that I take Emmy on day and weekend trips without them. Emmy just spent the week in the hospital, and we came home on Saturday. My niece's beds were moved into Emmy's room, and her toys were everywhere. I confronted my sister, and she said Emmy isn't using her room or her toys half the time, and that the kids should be sharing with each other. I told her that Emmy has already made it clear that she does not want to share her room or her toys, and that her room needs to be the way we left it by the end of the day. She says I'm being unfair, so I snapped at her that I will be prioritizing my kid over her ungrateful self and her kids, and that if she can't get over my kid not sharing, she needs to find somewhere else to live. They did fix Emmy's room, but they haven't been talking to us. At this point, I'm thinking about kicking them out anyways. Am I the jerk for telling her she needs to get over my kid not sharing or move out? Not the jerk. They're not talking to you? Really? In your house that they're living in rent-free? Kick them out. Also, I'm very sorry that your daughter is so unwell. Not the jerk. You made it clear to your sister that your daughter has boundaries, and good on you for sticking to them, and she still disrespected them. While she was in the hospital, no less. The only thing that I can think would make you the jerk here is your sister's kids. Why do they live apart from their father? Is he and your sister on a break since you referred to him as her husband still? Regardless, kicking out your adult sister would be one thing, but if that further uproots her daughters, I would say you're a bit of a jerk. Now that I make $300,000 a year, my wife wants to combine incomes. I, 31 male, recently completed my PhD in postdoc position. I didn't make much money during that period, about $26,000 annually for my PhD and about $32,000 while I was working as a postdoc. My wife, who's 30, who I married about when I got my PhD, makes a ton more money than I do, or made a ton more money than me. She made about $100,000 per year while we were together, so quite a bit of a gap. She also came up with the idea that we should put some of our income for ourselves and some for our family, and this would be proportional to our income to keep it fair. She always got a bit fancier stuff than me, and I was pretty jealous. I didn't voice it to her, which I guess I should have, but I don't understand how she never realized it. I don't want to reveal too much information, but while I was working as a postdoc, I made connections with a couple people who were starting up a company. Long story short, last year I made $300,000 without including my stake in the company. It's obviously risky, but I think the risk has paid off for me at least. I did get a Tesla Model S, which I'm entirely paying with my own money, including the insurance, and I'm starting to buy more expensive stuff for me too, and it honestly feels amazing. Now she's asking if we should just combine our incomes and each get the same amount of our money, which feels like total BS to me. She wants to eat her cake and have it too, and I just said no, she wasn't being fair. She then went on a spiel about equity, which I honestly did not listen to. I mean, she is allowed to make that suggestion, but I'm allowed to say no, right? Am I the jerk? Edit. I pay 3/4 of our bills now. I lived on my own. Housing was paid for by the university when I was a grad student. Holy cow, you're the jerk. First, you wouldn't tell her how you felt about the arrangement. Got angry when she couldn't read your mind. Now you're refusing to even listen to her? You're an adult. Communicate. Not the jerk. But you guys can probably start paying half of the bills each. No more of this proportionate to your income BS. Everyone sucks here. You're married. You have both looked at the other and said, yeah, this is the person I want to spend my life with in a partnership of equals. Then you both have been doing your absolute best to make it as unequal as possible. You're the jerk. You expected your wife to be a mind reader and resented the fact that she bought nicer things than you. If you wanted something you couldn't afford, you could have asked, and if she loved you, she probably would have said no problem. You were working on the PhD and postdoc for what, 8 years? During that time, she supported you, kept a roof over your head and food on the table. She made it possible for you to concentrate on your studies and earn your PhD. The only thing you're going to earn now is a divorce. Hope that's what you want. You're the jerk. Of course you want to hog all of the money now that you're the one making more. Why are men so selfish and greedy when it comes to money? Also, buying yourself a new Tesla? Did you buy her one too? You must be a slave to that ghoul Elon. Figures with how greedy you are. Let me guess, you order everything on Amazon too instead of supporting local businesses? But yay, my capitalism, right? You could have easily gotten a Civic or something and got your wife something nicer, like a BMW for putting up with all your BS and cheapskateism. Cheapskateism? The good thing is now, when she leaves you, she can take you to the cleaners for alimony with that big boy salary that you got lucky with. You're probably the kind of jerk that makes people call you doctor, even though you're just a rich boy whose parents paid for his schooling. Wish I'd had a rich mommy and dada to buy me a PhD. Instead, I'm stuck working my butt off at Dollar General for $7.50 an hour just to feed my kids McDonald's every night, which I know isn't good for their diabetes, but it's literally all we can afford right now. 90% of my salary goes to paying for daycare so that I can go to work. It's almost like it cancels itself out. And people wonder why we steal from our jobs. Any cash transaction I get, you bet your butt I'm voiding the transaction and pocketing that money. But what would you know about struggles, rich boy? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Why do I feel like we're at the zoo when we read Reddit comments? They refused me an office. I complied. They regretted it. I got my first grown-up job while I was finishing my bachelor's degree. I was just getting started in a highly technical and emerging field. Very few people back then were doing this kind of work, and I seemed to have an aptitude for it, which is probably why I got a job before I had any credentials. The department I was hired for was brand new and had the potential to take customers from other departments, while also generating net new business. Interestingly, the other departments had been offered the opportunity to start the service themselves, but refused, even actively trying to prevent it from happening. That's the reason I ended up in a malicious compliance situation. The leaders of all the other departments conspired to prevent me from getting an office. I didn't understand at first, because at that age, I didn't imagine professionals did petty, immature things. When I realized what was happening, I knew they'd get exposed if I went along with it. So I happily did my job wherever I could find a place, which often ended up being in the mailroom, where lots of people would notice. I hoped, maybe, that leaders would start to feel guilty or annoyed and change their minds, or they'd be caught by their bosses. Either way, problem solved for me without a fight. Little did I know how well it would go. I started to be well liked by a lot of the leaders because I helped them with their computers. There was one leader who still inexplicably hated me. I never spoke with him, not even one word, but he continued to insist I did not need an office. I wasn't even the level of secretary, according to him, which I took to be a dig at my lack of a degree. I heard about him saying that from a friend who was in the meeting when they talked about changing their minds. It's too bad for them they didn't change their minds, because the president came through the mailroom multiple times and finally stopped, clearly annoyed. "Why don't you work in your office?" That was my golden moment. I had complied politely with not having an office. I sweetly told the president, "I don't have an office." "What? Why not?" "There isn't room. No space available." "According to whom?" "Mr. So-and-so." "But you've been working here for what, 3 months? They could have found space for you by now." Oh, the president was beet red at that point. I just smiled and said my understanding is there is no space. The president literally stomped upstairs to the offices of Mr. So-and-so. I distinctly heard the yelling from downstairs. People outside probably even heard it. The president came and brought me upstairs to the conference room where the leaders were all seated looking down. There was a pile of keys on the table. I was afraid at that point. Was he having me pick someone's office to take? While that might have been sweet revenge, it wouldn't have been good for my working relationships with any of them. But no, she handed me a key to the conference room and said, "This is your office." She scooped up the rest of the keys, which I learned later were all of their copies of the key to the conference room, and said, "Your office is the largest office on campus, even bigger than mine. Enjoy." And she walked out. That was probably the best drop the mic moment I've ever seen in my life, and the story ends with my compliance not only winning me that office, but all the other leaders, except Mr. So-and-so, becoming great colleagues. Edit, follow up. I mentioned in the comments that there was another chapter to this story that I guess sort of puts a bow on it. One sunny day, about 6 months later, Mr. So-and-so passed me on the stairs outside the building. I was leaving and said good morning to him. We were the only two people, or so I thought. I wouldn't pass by a coworker like that without a polite greeting. I was in my office, quietly analyzing some data about an hour later, when, once again, the furiously red-faced president stormed into my office. I swear she was 12 feet tall in her anger. She demanded, "What's going on with you and Mr. So-and-so?" My heart was racing at probably 150 beats per minute, and I couldn't comprehend her question. "What do you mean, what's going on? I have no idea what you're talking about." I started to imagine she was accusing me of having a relationship with this man, and just, ew. She said she wanted to know why he just said what he said about me. I was perplexed. "I'm sorry, I still have no idea what you're talking about. I never have more than a greeting to say good morning worth of conversation with Mr. So-and-so. I can't think of anything whatsoever that he would have said about me." She told me that my sibling had just burst into her office raging about Mr. So-and-so. Turns out when I walked by him and continued on, the next person he encountered was my sibling, but he didn't know that. We both worked for the same company, but I was married and we had different last names. If he bothered to get to know me at all, he would have known that. He walked right up to my sibling and says, "There goes that jerk with her head in her backside." He assumed, I guess, that everyone else hated me too. He barely knew my brother, but felt comfortable saying that. So, my brother walked right into the president's office, interrupting a meeting, and repeated what Mr. So-and-so said. The president assumed that I was aware, but my brother hadn't gotten to me yet, and I didn't realize just how much Mr. So-and-so hated me. I told the president I genuinely didn't believe it was really about me. It could be because we never spoke. It had to be about what I represented, which was a major change to the organization. She walked to his office, then more yelling ensued. Pretty soon, they were back in my office. He apologized, and I repeated what I told the president, that I didn't believe it was really about me. Mr. So-and-so agreed. Later on, I had a project with him, and he started to trust me. We ended up being able to work together with no further issues. Insane Karen tries to make me her son's girlfriend. This happened about a year ago when I was 14 over winter break, and I was on vacation in Japan. Hence, this will all be roughly translated from Japanese. I was at the park sitting by myself on a bench drinking hot chocolate and listening to music when this guy tapped me on the shoulder. For the sake of anonymity, we'll call him Ethan. "Ethan, hi." I was in the zone from listening to music, so it took me about 10 seconds to register there was a human behind me. Me. "Hello." Ethan. "Sorry if this comes off as creepy, but there's ice skating around here, and I don't really want to go alone. Would you mind going with me? I can pay for you." I looked at this kid for a second before agreeing. He was cute, so I was surprised he didn't have anyone else to go with him. Me. "Sure, but do you mind if I ask my dad first?" Ethan. "Sure, no problem." So I called my dad, and he just asked me a few questions about the area, which I relayed on to him, then back to my dad a couple times. After my dad agreed, we started walking and talking, though it was only like a 2-minute walk. We arrived, paid for ice skate rentals, and started skating when suddenly I hear the voice of what seems to be a nice lady. Entitled Mom. "Ethan, sweetie, you forgot your gloves." She started running over to him, so I decided to do a lap to let them talk for a second when I hear Ethan yell to me. Ethan. "Mitsuki, come meet my mom." Me. "Sure." I skated over, and as I did, I noticed he was whispering something to her. So then I skated over, and she just kind of looked at me. Entitled Mom, looking at Ethan. Why are you talking to this American girl? I told you, you can only date Asian girls. I was surprised for a couple of reasons. One, I may not be as Asian as they are, but it's obvious I am Asian. Two, he called me by my name, Mitsuki, a very obvious and fairly common Japanese name. Three, he called me over in Japanese, to which I replied in Japanese. And yet, with all of this, she thought I couldn't understand her. I sat and listened for a second before the mom turned to me and said in the most thick Japanese accent I've ever heard, "Leave my son alone." The son protested for a couple seconds before his mom gave that, "I'm gonna count to 10" look. I just looked at her dead in her eyes. Me. If you need to say something to me, at least make it understandable. I said this in Japanese. Suddenly, Mom turned a shade of red that I've never seen before. She stayed silent for a few seconds before looking at me. You speak Japanese? Me. Yep, I am Japanese. Then, you would be perfect for my son. Me. I'm sorry, what? This lady's entire personality just switched in a nanosecond from go away to date my son. Entitled Mom. You heard me. My son needs a girlfriend, so he's not a loser in class. And a Japanese girl like you would do great. Me. I'm sorry, but I was instantly cut off. Ethan was just standing still. It doesn't matter. Look at my son. He's so handsome. Ethan. Mom, shut up. She doesn't want to. Leave her alone. You brat. I'm just trying to help you so you don't end up as a disappointment like your older brother. They kind of yelled back and forth for a minute while I sat there like a side character in a movie just watching. You will date him, right? Me. I don't live in Japan. Also, I like women. I said that with zero emotion because I was tired of this lady. No more words were exchanged. Ethan was dragged away while apologizing and telling me to just return the skates when I was done. Am I the jerk for refusing to change our custody agreement? My ex and I share 50-50 custody of our son, who's 9. Basically, we have him every other week. She also has a 5-year-old from her second marriage. They're divorced too, and the divorce arrangement is like ours, except she gets the 5-year-old on the week that I have the 9-year-old. Her second ex-husband refused to work around our custody agreement, so my ex asked me to change ours. This is a huge deal, and the reality is that I cannot just sign off on it. If I just say okay, then she'll start asking for more accommodations at my expense. I told her to think about what she's going to offer me to go along with this plan. She got mad that I wouldn't just do it. Honestly, if she would have offered me something like an extra holiday, then I'd just go along with it. She even said that she wasn't going to pay my legal fees because a judge has to sign off on any custody changes in our state. Now she's upset, and I don't care. Edit. Both boys are just as happy being together than not. Why? Because they both get to have their parent all to themselves, and my relationship with my son is more important than with his brother. I work in a family law office, and dealing with jerks like you is the worst part of the job by far. Instead of doing what's in the best interest for your kids, like preserving a healthy co-parenting relationship that will make your kids' lives materially better, you're choosing to be a major jerk. Worst of all, it's the kids that usually suffer the most when you have a parent being a grade A jerk like you are. You're the jerk all the way. Your "forget you, got mine" attitude disgusts me. I'm sort of curious about one thing, as I don't know family practice. If OP continues to be obstinate, doesn't the ex have the option to petition the court for a change in the custody agreement? Seems to me that if that is so, then OP is setting himself up for some unneeded legal fees down the road. In most states, yes, she could also use this thread to show the judge his attitude. You're the jerk. Your son should be growing up with his sibling. He's a human being, not a bargaining chip. Your relationship with your son is more important than his relationship with his brother? Read that back to yourself, OP. Hard, you're the jerk. Instead of trying to establish a healthy co-parenting dynamic, you're just doing this to be petty. And I bet you're doing it so your ex doesn't have a week off. This isn't a competition. Let your son spend time with his brother. There will come a day where you need your ex's support. This is very short-sighted. You're the jerk. My parents were divorced, and I distinctly remember my dad being a jerk. And there was a period of time my brother would be with my dad and I would be with my mom. And then we would switch, and I never got to see my brother. I hated my dad for it. You sound just like him. a narcissistic jerk who only cares about yourself, and your son will resent you and not have much of a relationship with you as an adult. Not the jerk. Look, man, you don't have to change any custody agreement just because she's pressuring you to do so. If the roles were flipped and you were the mother and the father was the one trying to pressure you into changing custody so he could have a full week away from both of his kids, all these Reddit fools would be siding with you, saying to not let him pressure and control you. You're honestly doing her a favor by not switching up. If you did switch weeks and she had a whole week off to herself, she'd be popping out another kid before you know it, and based on her relationship history, it would only be a matter of time until man number 3 splits on her too. You can only stay with a train wreck of a person for so long, as you and her second husband realized. Then, she'd have 3 kids that she wants to get rid of instead of 2. Next time she gets a serious boyfriend, if you get the chance, try to let him know what kind of a person she is. The last thing you want is for another innocent dude to end up tied to this crazy like you and her other ex-husband. And to all you Reddit morons who are calling this guy the jerk, I hope you're in the same situation one day. Then again, with the lack of spine that most of you have, you probably would just do whatever she tells you to. Weakness is hilarious. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex? Please let us know. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.